I was fully anticipating Noel was going to have some technical issues and not be able to get in.
It's almost like we know what we're doing, eh?
Similar.
Noel's looking a little bit perplexed. Can you hear us, pal?
Say something, Noel.
Let me have a look.
I spoke too soon, didn't I?
Can you hear us now?
Yes, I can, yeah.
Hey,
Excellent.
there he is.
We can breathe a sigh of relief.
As with all these things, I'm like an old person. No, that's not fair, is it? I'm like somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, just fumbling around.
You're not really like
on the screen.
You're not really like an old person.
Unlike you,
yeah. Starts already.
I've had no formal training.
I haven't had formal training. You just make it up as you go along. You just
absolutely
try things.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I'm the guy that teaches people. I have to learn something new every day to teach other people. That's what I do for a living.
So none of us have had any formal training.
No, winging it. Absolutely winging it.
All right.
Tis the way forward.
Yeah.
Did you do any chainsaw training?
No, I didn't. No.
There we go. Same thing.
How many digits you got there? No.
Insane.
We still got them all.
Oh, that's a terrible thought, isn't it? I've never been trained in driving. 1982. That's about, and forklift driving. Got a forklift license.
There you go.
Right.
What more is there to life? You're fine.
Yeah.
With that, you can conquer all. Gents, are you all right just firing straight into this, or do you want to have a little chat first? Is there anything you're not sure about? Anything you want to query before we get going?
We should just go straight into it.
Well, but Bruce, do you have a little? I'd like to hear your little chat. Clive gives a little chat to people when they come on. I wonder if you had a little chat, the do's and don'ts.
All I say is there's absolutely nothing to be worried about. It's just us having a chat. If you imagine we're down the pub, speaking of which, if you have a beer or a tipple of choice, feel free. It's just us having a chat, chatting about life and bikes and whatever comes up in the questions. Absolutely nothing to worry about.
Oh, so you don't tell people not to breathe strangely or
none of that. None of that.
So Bruce doesn't edit. That's the thing. I do editing. So I tell people not to actively listen. So you know that actively listening thing where you go, yeah. And, there's Greg does that all the time. It does my fucking head in when we're editing.
Honestly, see, when I first started doing this, I used to sit and I used to go through and I'd try and take out all like the, what do they call it? Explosives. You know, when you do that.
Explosives,
I used to go through all of it and try and take all that and take out any. No, I just don't bother at all anymore. It's just totally organic, and that's it.
I can't help myself. I still have to keep doing it.
Right, we just crack straight on, folks. If you've not figured this out yet, I've got Clive and Noel from the Trail and Adventure Motorcycle Podcast with us. How you doing, chaps?
No, MotorBIKE Podcast.
What did I say?
Motorcycle.
I do apologise. The Trail and Adventure Bike Podcast.
It was a really badly thought out. Was it thought out? Was the title thought out?
I don't know. We probably should have done motorcycle, because every time you Google search it, it says, "Would you like to search for motorcycle?" And it's like, no, motorbike. And then it's become shortened to TAMPod.
I've seen.
And everybody goes, tampon.
I wasn't going to say that at all. I'm above that.
Good on you.
Gents, as you just mentioned, your podcast, let's just get straight into this. Your podcast, you're flying. You're doing really well. Clive, you do the editing, don't you? Is that right?
I do. Yes, I'm obsessed with
it's a beautifully polished, well-edited podcast. I was really impressed with what you did when I came on, because I was thinking, what are you going to do with this? And yeah, it's amazing. It's really, really good.
Thank you. Coming from you, I really appreciate that. That's very kind.
Oh, mate, there's no qualification for me. I just wing it. I'm just winging it. I just like to chat.
Aren't we all? That's the thing, aren't we all? That's how we started, and we're still doing it.
How did you guys get into this?
Well, we've been riding together since 2005. Yeah.
No. Well, go on. All right.
Okay. So I got So I moved up here and I got a bike in about 2005. And we met a year or two after that. So maybe 2007. So that's, I can't do the maths.
Yeah.
And obviously we're reasonably good friends, and I'm massively into radio. I really like radio, and I had this idea. This is like probably, before the internet even. I wanted to do a radio show, so I bought, a recording device and think I'm going to make radio programs, and I never did. And then I kind of spotted what I thought was a gap in the market for a trail and adventure motorbike podcast. Mm-hmm. See, it's clear, hence the name. Not realizing there already was one guy in Canada doing one, but I thought it was a gap in the market. So we started about 4. And I just said to Noel, look, I think me and you, we have a good laugh. I think it'll be quite funny. Should we give it a go? See what happens? And kind of Noel went, yeah.
I was going to say, I think I did reluctantly agree. I didn't quite see the gap in the market that you saw, but
yeah. So we started.
I kind of thought,
you're reluctant to do anything, though. You're reluctant to get out of bloody bed in the morning, most mornings.
I was going to say, no, you're the sort of, I was going to say you're the reluctant half of the duo, but you're a little bit more reticent at coming forward. Is that probably the best way of saying it?
Well, what, do I come over as sounding reluctant then to be joining in?
No, it's like you say yourself, you're a self-confessed technophobe's probably unfair, but you very much put your hands up and go, no idea how the magic of all this happens, but I'm here and I'll talk when you want me to talk.
Yeah. And Clive, Clive does do all the work on this podcast. It's a really easy ride for me because I do just turn up. I often don't know who it's going to be. I'm getting a little bit better at watching the videos of people, but often they sent me a little heads up yesterday as to who we're having on perhaps in a few weeks. And I said, who's that? I'd never heard of this person. The first video I go to look at, there's 3-something million views of a video they've done. I'd never heard of them, but then they are in another part of the world. But
that's good in a way, because you then have a total sort of layman's perspective on that guest, don't you? I think that's good in that you'll have one person come in an angle where they're doing some research on it and they're well aware of that person and their background, and another one who's not. People that do that, bless him, Chrissy Rouse from Chasing the Racing, that's very much how he and Thom were doing the podcast. Thom would say himself, absolutely no idea, never heard of you before, tell me all about yourself. And it was a really nice, happy balance that they had. And you guys seem to have perfected that as well.
It does work really well. We never really talk about it, do we? But Clive's really good at steering it, and I'll just sort of think of questions along the way, really.
Yeah, because I'll spend a couple of hours just thinking and watching things, listening to things and writing questions down. So I kind of have a sequence of where I want it to go, really. But I think what Noel adds massively to it is the fact he actually listens when people are talking and asks really good, pertinent questions. Because I'm kind of busy watching things, software while it's recording, make sure it's all happening and working and filing my nails and things like that when I get a bit bored.
Well, you see, this is the interesting thing, because I'd never had a Zoom meeting until we started doing this. And even that we sort of put off for as long as possible. But I'm really not in the habit of having Zoom meetings. Certainly don't have Zoom meetings with anything to do with work. But I feel that I always feel under enormous pressure during a recording to sort of look interested, which I am interested, but to actually look into the lens of the laptop. Keep nodding and smiling. So I always find it really disconcerting that Clive, who's used to being in business meetings all day, where people will probably start writing something whilst they're in a meeting, Clive looks he doesn't realize this, and I haven't told him, but quite often,
tell me frequently,
he looks completely disinterested. And I often worry that the guest is kind of being really put off by that. But maybe the rest of the world's very good at it, and I just think that I have to keep looking in the face and smiling.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think maybe I'm a bit of an arse.
No, I during these podcasts, obviously I have my camera here looking straight at me, but obviously on the screen, there, to me, I'm looking at you guys in the face, but obviously I'm not. I'm looking to the side. But for me on this podcast, when I'm directing to the audience, then I'll look straight at the camera, or like if it's a particularly maybe pertinent point or subject that we're talking about, I might direct my gaze straight to the camera. But most of the time, I'm looking off camera, because I know when it comes to the actual video for YouTube of the podcast, the way I orientate the screen, it's going to look like I'm looking at you guys. Do you know what I mean? Like it will look when you watch it like I'm looking at you when you talk. But I appreciate when we're doing this, I'm looking at the screen. I'm not looking at you.
Can I tell the nails story?
Go on in.
Well, we had Ollie Moto on.
Yeah.
Very interesting podcast.
Very, very dull. Very boring, man.
And Ollie launches into an amazing story about being lowered out of a helicopter to save a life. And I see Clive fiddling around, and all of a sudden he appears with a tiny little pair of nail scissors and starts cutting his nails. And I saw Ollie sort of think, what the fuck? But good on him. He carried on and saw his story through, and I didn't say anything I didn't want to interrupt his flow.
I don't know. You hear one life-saving out of the helicopter story. You've heard them all, haven't you?
But that just shows how relaxed he is during these recordings. It's
I'm a little bit nervous about this one.
Why is that?
Because nervous is the wrong word. Just a bit concerned, because normally I have full editing control. So if I, or more likely Noel, says something really stupid, I can just edit it out.
Gotcha.
Whereas you're not going to do any editing, are you?
No, I have had to do it. Normally, I like to keep it as organic as possible and just let it run. But I've had, one I've had to edit, and one which I couldn't broadcast because the person involved wasn't happy with it at the end. But I've had to edit one before. So it's the beauty of it not being live. If you're not happy with anything that you do say, let me know. As long as there's a beer involved, I can maybe do a little bit of editing.
And with that recording, Bruce, did that come as a complete shock to you that he didn't want it putting out? Or something by soundproofing. Gone. We'll forget about it.
No, Noel's just destroying his studio for those of you who are listening.
Amusing effect.
Yeah, it did. It was a friend of mine. I don't want to say acquaintance because I think that cheapens it. I consider him a friend, but it's like a friendship at distance, if you know what I mean. You know, when you meet, you're good mates, but we don't keep in touch all the time. Sadly, they suffer from quite severe mental illness, and when we recorded the episode, they were going through a bit of an episode themselves at that time. So they were rambling quite a lot, and it was quite hard to keep the conversation on course. And at the end of it, they were very, very nervous about how they might have come across, and asked to listen to the podcast before it went out. Normally, I don't. Normally, people don't hear it before it goes out. It just goes out live, and they trust me. But because of the issues that person had, I said, "Yeah, okay, here you are. Have a listen to it." And they hated it, absolutely hated it. So that was that. So, in the best interests, I thought, right, discretion's a better part of valor here. And that one never went public. It's a shame because I thought it was a very raw, what's the word? Real conversation, not only about that person and what they've been through, but the mental illness that they were suffering too, because it was there for you to see. But I understand why they don't want things like that broadcast. So sadly, it's just part of it.
Clive never lets us get that deep into things, so I don't think people ever.
No, I'll make a knob joke or something so we can move on to something a little bit more cheerful.
Absolutely,
or just swear randomly. But we've never had anything. We've not had anything like that. The only thing we've had is a bit of a delay just recently getting one out. But the person was basically speaking on behalf of the company he works for, so he just had to be really careful that everything he said his bosses were happy with, and that's fine. And we always give people the option to say, actually, can you take that bit out? And pretty much nobody ever asks to take anything out, really. I've probably taken it out already if it's anything slightly dubious. So
I mean, how would you describe your podcast then for people that haven't listened to it yet? And obviously, folks, I will leave links down below for the podcast. But if you've not listened to it yet, how would you describe it? How would you entice people in?
So we're very much focused on trail riding, adventure riding, dirt bike stuff, basically. Anything to do with dirt.
Sorry.
standing up, Bruce. You have to stand up on one of these bikes. It's a standy-uppy bike show. And I think what most people that comment and have written reviews about us say that they like it because it's just like listening to a couple of, or being with some mates in the pub talking about dirt bikes.
Yeah, absolutely.
People are often a little bit ruder than that, saying it's a couple of old geezers talking shite and lecturing other people about dirt bikes. But
I'd never thought about it that way. But that compliments come through a few times, and it's our favourite, I think, isn't it? It's great to hear that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Who do you find is your sort of biggest audience? Because I think for me, the people I get the most feedback from are like drivers, delivery drivers, couriers, truck drivers, people like that, people that have the time, or like decorators, people that have the time just to plug themselves in and just listen whilst they work.
We get a variety. Yeah, truck drivers is one. People walking the dogs is another quite big one.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Everybody says that, there's a mate in Saudi or something like that. He gets up at 4:00 in the morning to take his dog for a walk when it's cool and listens to it then. But yeah, middle-aged men mainly. I think we have a 4% women listenership. But yeah, people tend to identify themselves more by the bikes they ride rather than the jobs they do. So we foolishly started this big bike versus small bike debate.
Oh, yeah.
We've got both. We ride big bikes and we ride small bikes. We have, but we think that if you are going to ride off-road, start off on a small, cheap second-hand bike you don't mind destroying, because you're going to.
That is an incredibly emotive subject, isn't it? Big bike, small bike for off-road. Probably only beaten by tyres for road riding, I would think.
Oh, we get off-road tyres and oil.
Oil as well. Yeah, absolutely. Gents, normally I would. How long have you got, by the way? Because my podcast can go on for hours. So how long do you have?
Fine. As long as you're okay with that. A couple of hours.
I've got no time limit.
Normally, what I would do is the first third half of the podcast is just us having a chat, and then I go to questions. But there are loads of questions, particularly on Instagram. You lads seem to have a thriving following on Instagram.
I certainly recognise quite a lot of the names on there, that's for sure.
Have you had a little butchers already, have you?
Yes, including one of my sons. Very, very rude.
It's always good. I always try not to pre-read the questions, so I'll try and be a couple of words ahead as I read them out. And obviously, if anything gets a little bit too tasty, I'll maybe just stop it there and then. But let's see.
But it's interesting. I don't see all the numbers that Clive sees, and I don't see a lot of the comment. Now and again, he'll send me a screenshot of the comments, but this sounds a little bit trite, maybe. But I always just think that we're doing it for our circle of friends, really. Because that's the only feedback I get is from the circle of friends that listen to it.
That pretty much is only the people that listen to it.
Yeah.
You must have a big circle of friends then.
Well, it's getting bigger.
Yeah, you're ranking well, really well.
Yeah, it seems to have changed recently. So we're getting probably bigger numbers than we've ever got for downloads. But actually, we seem to be slipping down the rankings a little bit. But we were number one in Finland the other week.
Yeah, I saw that. What I found myself with the podcast and what I've heard is that in your first sort of year of the podcast, they really push you out there, and then they almost seem to go, right, you're out now, you can fend for yourself, and then that's that. Because I found the first year, I remember there was myself and Chasing the Racing. We were like top 5, top 3 at one stage. And it's like, bloody hell, this is going amazing. And then I took a break over Christmas after the first year. And I think I had about 6 weeks off and literally just fell off the face of the planet. And it's probably taken a year and a half, almost 2 years to bring it back up to, I think I just crept into the top 10 a couple of months ago, and it seems to hover about the 10, 20s, somewhere like that.
Yeah, same here, because we're always around the same place as you are. But it's not just downloads, it's also based on number of new listeners.
Oh, right, okay.
And possibly, I think they factor a number of things in there, because obviously people can go in and just go to these download farms, and you can get your podcast downloaded 1 million times, and all of a sudden you're top of the charts.
Blimey.
So what they do is they actually put other factors in there to stop people from having a big impact like that.
Gotcha.
Quite interesting.
Yeah. It's are you Are you obsessed with the facts and the figures around the podcast, or have you gone by that now and it's just what will be will be?
Well, I would be if I had access to them, but it's quite nice not having as good access to them, so I kind of forget about it really.
I only fairly recently discovered them. I only did like last, September or something like that, discovered that there were podcast charts. Not only that there were podcast charts, we were fucking in them. It's like, and we were like, sometimes we were like, in the top 4. We're talking in the automotive UK, aren't we? We both do fairly well in, but I didn't even know they were there. And to be honest, I'm reasonably obsessed with them now. I do hope it will pass.
Yeah, I've sort of, I don't obsess about them anymore, and same with the YouTube ones. I just, because YouTube in particular, I found it just started. It just takes over. It's like every 3 minutes you're having, what's your sub count? What's your sub count? What views are you getting? All this sort of stuff. You're like, come on, there's more to life. Let's forget about this.
We are pure audio. We don't publish any video at all. And now as an experiment, I've put a few of our podcasts onto YouTube to see if that, people catch up with it and start listening to it, or maybe that will actually bring people to the, to the audio version. So it's basically just a single photograph with the audio. That's it.
See, I find the audio does much better than the video. I think my audio gets between sort of 8,000 and 15,000 downloads a month, but the videos, I think I get about 4,000 views a month, which for YouTube is terrible. The videos get a couple of hundred views sometimes for that first week, but the audio certainly seems to do a lot better.
Is this a young people thing? Is there only young people watching podcasts on the radio, on the radio, on the wireless, on the
telly box?
Yeah.
I don't really know, to be honest, because YouTube seems to spread over all sort of age groups now, and sexes and whatever else you want to chuck in there. The podcast side of things, I don't think I've looked at my analytics that in depth.
You can actually get a breakdown by age range. So I can see a chart, Noel, of 25 to 35, 36 to 45, right, and young, and we're mainly at the 40 plus age range. So I think it is older people listen to podcasts.
Yeah. But I think 2 to 3% women, which I heard the other day.
4%.
4%. Wow.
Yeah.
Hang on. I could bring mine up. Let's have a look. I'm eager to know. The only reason is because what did I do? I was doing a live stream with an American motor vlogger yesterday, and no, was it? What was it? Oh, no, it was my own live stream. Sorry, it was my own live stream over on Patreon. And somebody asked about what's my female viewing stats for the YouTube channel. So I had a look at it, and it was way higher than it's ever been. And it was 4.8%. And I was like, my God, that's incredible.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet it's fairly similar to ours.
So where do you find that then? Where do you find episode downloads?
What's your host? Are you on Buzzsprout?
Buzzsprout, yeah.
Yeah, so if you go into stats, this must be fascinating for the listeners.
I know, yeah.
And then within stats, if you scroll down, there's a more download stats button.
More downloads.
But, none of this information is of any use to us, is it really?
Well, apparently it can be, but I don't know.
I remember years ago looking at a list of, I think it was through Apple Podcasts, and this is like 10 or 12 years ago, and the list was unbelievably long. And even 10 years ago, I thought, gosh, if you produce a podcast, you're going into a massive pile of existing content.
And now, I would say in the last 2 to 4 years, podcasts have just exploded, haven't they? They're massive now.
So you feel, how do people find them? You sort of feel for people on the search for something.
That's
it's hard
the thing.
To browse, I imagine.
Yeah. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think maybe those. I've just had a quick look myself and think maybe I got those stats from Apple Podcasts rather than Buzzsprout.
Yeah, I can't see it on Buzzsprout. Never mind, folks. Never mind. Oh well. Right, shall we crack on with these questions? Otherwise, we're going to be here till next Thursday, I think, if we're going to get through them all. First ones, let's head to the clan, which is over on patreon.com/TeapotOne. First one, Patrick Collin. Okay,
these are the ones we probably haven't seen then. So these
you won't have seen these ones. These are behind the wall. Okay, so here goes. The last time I went off-roading, it was over 20 years ago, with a peaky two-stroke and involved multiple crashes to the point of hurting myself, with work offering the door if I didn't stop. I do enjoy off-roading, but is there any easier and safer facilities to practice? If not, then I suspect my off-roading days are done. Right, safe ways of off-roading.
But I guess it's always going to be, you're always going to be falling off-roading. And I think that both Noel and I cope with that by going a little bit slower. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't hurt so much when you do fall off. That said, we've both been doing it for long enough now, and we both live up in the Lake District, and it's fairly technical riding around here.
But did you, Clive? I remember reaching like a watershed moment where I'd go out, and every time I would fall off 1 to 10 times. Yeah. And all of a sudden that number decreased to the point where in 1986 I stopped falling off. Yeah. And I haven't really fallen off since.
Exactly. I don't really fall off.
But I think everyone to sort of go out and think, well, I'll get some training and then I'll never come off. Coming off is a big part of learning, isn't it? I think for quite a long time.
Yeah. But there are so many training organisations around, particularly in Wales, whether it's the BMW Off-Road School. There's great resources. Lel Pavey on YouTube, who we had on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, does some amazing, video instruction. But really, it's all about, getting the miles in and practicing.
Yeah, nothing really comes close to just getting the dirt under the tyres when you're on the bike. Same with road riding, isn't it? You've got to get the miles on the bike. Absolutely. It's interesting what you said there. I think it was yourself, Noel, that said that about coming off is part of off-roading, isn't it? And I always found I'm not too fussed about it anymore, but I just didn't want to come off. I was paranoid about hurting myself, and I just didn't want to do it. And then it's going to happen, isn't it? Eventually it happens. Yeah. And once you come off, you're like, okay, then, right, let's just crack on. Get on with it then. What are you going to do about it? There's nothing you can do, is there? If you're going to go off-road, it will happen. Yeah,
and I go out with people now that have been riding all their lives, and sometimes in different sort of genres of motorcycling, and they'll remain nameless. They still fall off at every ride, during every trip sort of thing. But the kind of riding we're doing, you're pretty unlucky. I mean, it's funny that Austin Vince said every time he does these Pyrenean things, somebody ends up in hospital. I was quite surprised at that because we see people fall off a lot, and we kind of, friends of ours, we all kind of fall off, but none of us have ever, touch wood, come to grief, really, have we? So like Clive said, at a low speed.
When you say ever.
But at a low speed, you're very unlucky to really seriously hurt yourself. But that come back to the bike weight thing a little bit there. Don't on a light bike, you're far less likely to do yourself some harm.
Yeah, falling off a big bike is all completely different because you're dealing with an awful lot more weight, a lot more force, and it can be more problematic.
But of course, I have a bit of a trials background, or at least I've always had trials bike. So I think trials is fairly, everyone knows this really. That's a good basis, isn't it, for learning how to balance and how to turn and weights of bikes and things.
Yeah,
there was a lot less online. I think when I was learning to ride, it was just go out there and do it. Whereas now,
it wasn't online when you were.
No, there wasn't online. But I'm watching Lel Pavey's stuff now and thinking, I never really thought about that. Yeah, that's really interesting. So.
But you had Kickstart.
I never stopped learning. I had Kickstart. That was it, yeah. But I couldn't get my hands on a Beetle to ride over.
Do you know when you see some of the clips on social media now or YouTube of like junior Kickstart, these kids, and some of the falls that they had? I remember laughing about it when I was a kid watching it, but you watch it now when you're grown up and you're like, that must have bloody hurt.
Yeah. The skip one, that always looked treacherous to me, riding through a skip. That seemed pretty tricky at the time.
Unreal. Yeah. I can see your trials bike in the corner there.
Yeah.
Do you still do it?
I've competed once in my whole life, but I've always had, because I started to learn on trial bikes, to me a trial bike is like the essence of a motorcycle, and any other motorcycle is just a trials bike with lots of stuff on it that it doesn't need. So for me, I always, every now and again, I'll sell a trials bike because I'm not using it, but then if I don't have one, I just feel like if everything else had to go, I'd certainly keep the trials bike and one other, but I always feel it's just because I started off on one, I always have to have.
Yeah.
It's interesting, actually. Trials bike, I had one for a little while too, and I am going to get another one. But they are incredible for teaching you to ride off-road, because you just kind of learn what a bike is actually capable of doing.
Okay.
They're incredibly light. They're only less than 90 kilos, most of them. And it is just fantastic. The things you can get over and you can roll over, and then you just take that to your enduro bike or your trail bike or your adventure bike. And the skills are the same. It is a really good way to learn. There's places like Inch Perfect down in Lancashire, up in Lancashire for you. You can go and have training days with them. And really good stuff. Yeah, Trials bike is a good recommendation.
But off-road, you're always picking a line off-road, but on a Trials bike, all you're doing is picking a line, and all you're doing is thinking about how your tread is sitting on the ground. So you're thinking more than any other kind of discipline of riding, I would say, on a Trials bike. But it's a great to carry that onto trail riding is really handy.
It's a really good workout as well. You the whole layering system that off-road riders wear is because you get hot, because you're working. You're working a lot of 85% of the muscles in your body are having a bit of a workout, so it's actually really good for you as well.
So what are we saying? The advice is keep riding, keep falling off.
It sounds like it. Absolutely. Get a Trials bike. I got invited to one of the forgive me, I can't remember the name of it, but I got invited to one of the trials schools, and I knocked it back because I genuinely thought to myself, this is going to be so far out of my comfort zone that I'm just not going to enjoy it. So in turn, the video won't be any good promotion for him, because it'll just be me shitting myself and going, this is shit. But a kind of part of me is like, come on, man up, get hold of your find your danglies and go for it.
I think you'd be really surprised at actually how capable you were, and what you, by the end of the day, what you would actually be able to do.
So you've never ridden a Trials bike in your life, Bruce, have you not?
No, never Trials. No.
Wow.
I've only just started doing a wee bit of off-roading, and I've got to say, I am starting to see the allure of it. Definitely, I'm at that stage where I'm like, maybe there's a bit of room for a little CRF in the garage, maybe just to go and do the odd little bit. But I definitely feel more comfortable. Like I've done off-road stuff on the GS, and I've done off-road stuff on like a little Husky 350 or the Honda, I think it was a 300 CRF or 350 CRF. And I definitely felt more comfortable on the big adventure bike. I just felt like I could balance more, like I was in charge of the bike more. Whereas on the little bikes, it really felt like this thing would just go off and do its own thing. Like I couldn't control it. It's really weird, horrible feeling.
I still haven't worked out, and I have admitted this before, it's not great. It does go against the ethos a little bit, but I'm still trying to work out whether I enjoy road riding more than trail riding, or trail riding more than road riding. I'm kind of on the fence on it a little bit.
I'm not. It's all about the trails for me. All about the off-road.
See, if it makes you smile, then dirt or not, just get out on whatever it is you ride and enjoy it.
Damn right.
Right. Okay, Patrick, I hope that's answered your question. Go and get yourself a Trials bike. Let's start there. You couldn't possibly hurt yourself falling off the top of like a truck when you're bounced on top of a truck, or you're jumping off a waterfall. You'll be fine. Michael Heaton. Hiya, Bruce and the lads. I'm glad you got these on. I asked you to get them on your podcast back in July. You know that email about Moto Gymkhana? That's a nut. Shit. Apologies. I've still not replied to that email.
Does look good fun, actually. Yeah, we know.
It looks amazing. One of my mates, Pete English, he went and did it on his GS, and he was just a natural. Funnily enough, Pete.
What is it? I don't know what this is. Yeah.
It's when you have a whole load of cones, like an agility course around cones. You've never seen this, like the American police, the Japanese police. Yeah.
No,
it's phenomenal. The control, the bike control they have. It's like a timed course, agility course through cones, round cones, all this sort of stuff. And obviously you do it on motorbikes, but the police forces out in Japan and in America and lots of other places, it's sort of a badge of honor for them. So the Yanks are taking Harleys and Japanese are taking Goldwings, and it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal what they do.
But they're not riding up sort of seesaw planks and through tunnels.
No, they don't do that, but it's all like, figure of eights and round and round cones, just really, really tight maneuvers, all timed. It's an amazing thing to do. The bike control is like trials. Yeah. It's phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Oh, I'd love that. Let's do that.
Yeah, there's one up. Well, I think there's it's called Moto Gymkhana, and there's clubs all over the UK. This one,
Michael's in the northeast, isn't he? I think. Yeah, I was going to say he's in the northeast. Yeah,
that's right. Michael, I do apologise. I've got to drop them a line again about the Moto Gymkhana. I definitely want to do it. Anyway, I also mentioned getting someone from the ACT routes, but I have another plan. Clive suggested maybe I could ride the ACT UK with him, but I'm a total novice off-road and would embarrass myself. So what about you doing it? It'd make a cool video for sure. Okay, first off, what's ACT?
It's Adventure Country Tracks. So it started off in the US, I think, or they're in Europe as well. Is it Europe? I think, or is it Europe? Or it's Europe or the US? And I think it's sponsored by a number of the big clothing companies like Touratech. And they're basically like the TET, the Trans-Euro Trail. They've created these routes, primarily off-road routes, linked by road, but they're made for bigger bikes, so they're less technical. So you could take your GS or your Africa Twin and be confident and comfortable that you could actually ride, from Cornwall up to Scotland or wherever it goes to and from. I can't remember where the ACT UK is, but it's
no, I don't know. I've never looked at it.
No, but it's a big bike off-road trail. Download the GPX. Have you done it, Clive? I haven't done it. No. We've done quite a lot of the Trans-Euro Trail in UK and Europe.
I'd be up for that, haven't we? Absolutely, I'd be up for that. Totally. Yeah. Let's
do it. I'll bring my 1050 KTM.
Right. Deadly serious. I'm up for doing that. I think it would be fun to do. I can't believe I said that, but I think it would be fun to do, and it would make great content. Absolutely,
it would be very good. No, it's great. There's loads of videos on YouTube. Search it up on YouTube and have a look. That's some great.
I will do that. Right, no worries. I'll drop you a little line after this then. Nice one.
Is the ACT? I mean, I've always taken it that the ACT, there's a little bit more money involved, isn't there? Or do you have to pay for the information a bit more?
No, it's all free. You can contribute, but it's actually it seems to me that it's funded by these manufacturers like Touratech and whoever else sponsors it. So their names are all over it. But it's still a free download. You can contribute if you want to.
Right.
Interesting. I'll have a look at that. Yeah. Sounds good. All right, nice one. Cheers, Michael. Thank you very much for that. Next one, Colonel Bullen. How you doing, Colonel? Great guest, Bruce. I really like their podcast. Clive and Noel, just one question. Did you guys finally come to an agreement for big bikes versus small bikes? This is an ongoing thing with you guys, isn't it?
It is. So we're both. Maybe I should speak for myself. I'm very much in the small bike camp while still having a big bike. I think it boils down to where you're going to be riding. So we live. I live between the Yorkshire Dales and the Lake District National Park, and there's Northumbria. So there's some quite technical trails around here. Now, if you're a good rider, you'd manage on a big bike, but it's far more fun on a small bike. It's less stressful. It's less expensive when you drop it. Yeah, it's small bikes for me.
And I get around this whole dilemma by just having a range of bikes for different things. And there's a GS outside for the bigger,
there you go,
even bigger things. So I'd find it very hard to settle with one, really. But I'd go for the medium-sized one. But yeah, it'll never be settled because some people just like the feel of a big bike. The first thing I realized when I got on a big bike was just how comfortable it was. It's kind of like a Range Rover, isn't it? Dan once said it's like the SUV of bikes, isn't it? It's a comfortable thing. It looks great, but isn't always necessarily that practical.
Yeah, so, the big adventure bikes, you can easily ride them to Morocco with a pillion on the back and enough luggage for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, all strapped to the bike. And then you can push a button or make some adjustment and ride the thing off into the sand dunes or over the rocks, do what you want to do, if you're capable, obviously.
Yeah. And the argument is that you could ride a CRF 250 to Morocco. And you could. I rode back up from Spain after I left Clive last year and came up through France. I started to think after a very short time, this would be a great trip on a big bike. And it was fine on a small bike, but it would have been a lot more fun on a slightly bigger thing.
Of course. Everyone knows you can do any trip on any bike. Of course you can. As long as you're capable of doing it, as long as you've got the mindset to do it. But some make it a damn sight easier than others, don't they? It's just the way it is.
I always hear our friend now, who's here, Will, just shouting, 690, 690.
Yeah, that's probably the answer.
Builder, yeah.
A 690 or a 701 or a 700. That's the KTM. Yeah, that's the right answer, I think.
Because it's the happy medium, yeah.
Yeah. Same weight as a CRF 300 as well.
Sheesh.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Clive found this out too late and was genuinely frustrated about it.
I've just bought the wrong bike. That said, the KTM's about $3,000 more expensive. So
yeah, and the KTM will spend most of its time back in the garage, won't it, and in the dealership. So.
Yeah, you'll never change an oil seal whilst you have that Honda.
No, shouldn't need to anyway.
Colonel's got a wee bit at the end. He says, I'm in favour of big bikes. My issue is I live in Kent and there is not many green lanes to do. So I need to cover some miles to get to nice green lanes. So for me, it's big bikes all day. Yes, basically what we've just had a wee chat about, isn't it? Yeah, nice one. Okay, next one. Biker España. How you doing, Chris? Great guests as usual, Bruce. Question 1. Do you prefer riding fixed routes like the TET, ACT, etc., or setting off with a map and winging it?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because the TET and the ACT and things like that, and GPXs you get from members of the TRF and things like that, just make life so much easier.
Yeah,
and the fact that when you get to wherever you're going, you're going to have an interesting route with great trails on and things like that. But it is nice every now and again to see something like we did in Spain and go, oh look, we can go that way.
Yeah.
And, we ended up on top of a mountain where some of us camped out for the night.
But as Brits, we're always very fearful, aren't we? Even in Spain, where we kind of know that you probably will be fine going up pretty much any track if it doesn't have a piece of wire across it. But as Brits, we've conditioned to be so cautious, aren't we, about taking a chance of a track. So that's probably why we love the TET so much. Clive and I kind of disagreed when we were away. Do you remember, Clive? I said the TET was kind of a lazy man's option. And you sort of took me to task on that a little bit.
Did I? Had I been drinking? What did I say?
Let's have that discussion all over again. But it is, the TET in a way, it's a wonderful thing.
Off you go.
It's a wonderful thing. But it is it's a great resource, but it is kind of the lazy, we don't have to do any research. We've gone down the lazy route, I would suggest, because we don't have to do any research. So we don't set off and wing it because that GPX is there, just living on our handlebars. It's like having a guide. And there's so much to go at. That's probably why we've just stuck with that, I would say. So no, we very rarely wing it. When I hear that people do it, I think, well, good for you. You've really done your research and put some time in. We are probably quite lazy, I would suggest, in that regard.
I never used to be a sat-nav person at all. But before, I'll just call it the big trip so I don't mention it. Before the big trip, I was always a map person. I never used sat-navs or anything like that. And I used to love to just sit there with a map on my tank bag, when I headed off down into Europe. And it was just like, that looks good over there. That looks good over there. Let's go. But I think as technology's advanced, it has almost made us a little bit lazy, hasn't it? And like today, I use an app, Kalimoto app, which if you can't even be arsed to plot a route in there, you can just hit a random ride and it will tell it how far you want to go. Like, you could do a 40-mile or 300-mile route and what style of riding you like, whether you want it mega twisty or if you want fast sweepers, you just tell it and it plots a route for you. So like, I can't remember the last time I sat and looked at a map and went, like a physical map and went, that's good. That looks good over there. That looks good over here. I just wing it with the phone because no matter where I end up, the phone will get me wherever I need to go.
Yeah. I mean, these resources that are available to us, why wouldn't you use them? But you can do both. You can take a map with you as well to kind of orientate yourself as to where you are and think, well, the route's actually taking me over here. There's this really interesting thing if I just take a slight detour around there. But yeah, why wouldn't you use these incredible technology resources that we've got now? Are you having any less fun by following a line on a route?
No.
Most of us aren't. Austin Vince would probably say, yes, you are. You should use a map. He likes maps.
But he's a oh God, what's the word? What is the word I'm looking for?
Careful,
when I know,
Genius.
There's lots of people screaming things. But he's not a traditionalist. I suppose it's traditionalist.
Yeah.
Like he wants the map, and he thinks you should navigate by the compass, and no modern technology. Yeah. That's just how he is, isn't he? He very much that's his idea of adventure.
When I rode up through France last year, part of my daily routine, in the evenings, was to get a map out, look for the squiggly roads that were heading in the direction I was heading in, and do a sort of a shortest distance between points and towns, I suppose. But mixed into that, I would then have the TET on my Montana, my Garmin device. So every time it sort of crossed a little bit of TET, you would take the TET, and then, so like Clive saying, it's great to mix them up a little bit.
Yeah.
Have an established route that you've downloaded and just take that shortest distance on a paper map. It worked really well.
Yeah, definitely. I've not done that in such a long time, actually. And I think because most of my riding now is either I'm heading out because I need to get, I've got to film something. So the ride is almost secondary. It's just like, right, okay, I know this route. I know what I'm going to be riding on, what the roads are going to be like, and I know where I can get my drone stuff and my B-roll stuff. And, if it's a bike review or something like that, or a bit of kit review. Or if the other times I'm riding, I tend to be out either on a group ride or away on a tour, taking a tour somewhere. So you haven't got that flexibility that you do when you just go off by yourself. I really want to try and ride more just by myself, but I can't this year because it's just all tours this year. It's gone crazy with tours. So try and make a wee bit more time for my own riding, I think.
It's interesting hearing how people do pick routes. Do you remember Mungo, Clive, saying he looks for roads by water? I think it was Mungo that said that we spoke
it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. I don't know if I do that subconsciously, but that was as well as looking for squiggly roads. He was looking for roads by
because you're always going to get
be it lakes or rivers.
Yeah, beautiful views. Yeah, it makes sense. Or coastal roads.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Didn't think of that. Right. Chris has got he's got two more questions. Question 2. Where's your favourite place to ride in the UK or abroad?
Ooh. Well, my new favourite place after a trip I did last year is the Southwest for trails. That was great fun. I really loved that. It just felt like quite often, I think in the UK, I've been on a lot of tracks in Wales, and I do love Wales, but there's been a lot of tracks I've ridden in Wales where I thought, gosh, if somebody stops me on this track and says, what the hell are you doing? Look at that mess.
Yeah.
How on earth, I thought, God, I'd really find out to justify being on here on a bike. It's often a mixture of 4x4 abuse and trail bike abuse. But in Cornwall, it just felt like, it really did just feel like untarmacked roads everywhere. And I didn't see anybody for the whole sort of 4 or 5 days. It just felt like the sort of mecca for trail riding within the UK. So that's my new favourite place.
I think for me, the Lakes takes a bit of beating. Obviously, we're very familiar with it now as well. But I think I did a trip a few years ago with my wife up to Harris. So the Highlands and Islands are just phenomenal. And we had Rohit, the toll-free traveller, on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he's done an NC 500 series of films. And it was lovely seeing it from his perspective as an Indian that lives in India. And so the islands I think are amazing as well.
What's your favourite place out of the UK, Clive, would you say?
Out of the UK? Well, I haven't done that much riding out of the UK, really. I've only really done Europe. I've been to Morocco 5. Yeah, it's Morocco, isn't it? I've been to Morocco 5 times now.
So. Well, you've been all over Europe as well.
Yeah, so...
but not much riding outside of the UK.
So the first trip I did actually as a 12-year-old was on the back of my dad's 404 in 1977, and we pretty much did most European countries. And I guess we went to Europe 5 or 6 years on the trot, didn't we, Noel?
How old were you then when you did that trip with your dad?
12.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it at the time? Were you quite excited about it?
Absolutely loved it. Yeah. I think I tell this story on the podcast. But yeah, I discovered food because at home my mum would just make the stuff I liked, which was like sausages and fish fingers, and it's like when we were abroad, it was like, well, the restaurant's got this. You're going to eat that? No, I don't like that. No, you're not going to eat that.
Yeah.
But day 3, it was like, oh, this is nice. What's this called? These are oysters, Clive. It's like, no, we never had oysters, but
frog. Yeah.
No, I've got such happy memories from that trip. It was absolutely amazing, and wellies and a semi-rainproof suit, and a Paddy Hopkirk or Gordo helmet. Yeah, safety at all.
And were you camping?
Yeah, it was all camping very much on the cheap. But yeah, sleeping bags wrapped in bin liners and things like that. Amazing.
Yeah, I did that with my son when he was about the same age. Actually, he was 11 or 12. And he came away on the back of my Gixxer. He was right into his parkour at the time. So we went down into France, and there's a mecca of parkour where like there's a big sort of monument made to whoever the guy is that came up with parkour. So he wanted to go there. So we went there, but then we carried on going. And we sort of went into Germany and Austria and around France. We had 2 weeks on this blooming Gixxer 1000 with my son on the back and the tent and everything. And I loved it. And even my son's 25 now, and he still talks about that. And he's like, can we do it again? But he's like, can we do it in the car and not on a bike?
I've just Googled it. It was Monsieur Parkour that came up with it.
Monsieur Parkour. Genuinely, was it Monsieur Parkour? No. Oh, he got me. He whacked me. Oh, no. I'll never live that down from my mates.
And just from a safety point of view, because obviously we can't quiz Clive's dad, and it was the 70s. 70s? Yeah, 70s.
Yeah.
So it was different times. But was it quite scary having your son on the back, Bruce, or did you feel quite at ease with it? You trusted your own riding, obviously, and why wouldn't you? I felt fairly relaxed about it. I remember at one stage, I think we'd gone into Germany. I remember sort of tapping him on the back, on his legs, just to, go, are you okay? Enjoying it? And nothing came back. And I turned round and he was fast asleep. Yeah. So he was basically, I had a Ventura luggage rack on the back of the Gixxer with, the bag, the luggage on there. And then I think, did I have a rucksack as well? So he could sort of grab around the rucksack. So he was just wedged in between the luggage rack and me. And he just fell asleep. He was that chilled out. You hear this quite a lot, don't you? And I wonder if anyone's actually fallen off a bike. Must have happened, mustn't it? Everything's happened, but
I'm sure
fallen off having been asleep. Yeah.
I remember I had like a big, I think I had a big bungee as well. So I put a bungee around him and me. Literally, I think that's what I did. Just sort of connected him on there. But
safety first.
Yeah. I mean, he's 11, 12, so he was just dead. He was so relaxed he fell asleep. But he was so relaxed on the bike that it just was my camera disappeared.
A little bit.
Sorry to interrupt, folks. I will be quick. It is sponsor shout-out time. We are sponsored, as always, by Ultimate Add-ons. Bit of a blurb to read out for them. Ultimate Add-ons are the premium manufacturer of mobile phone and action camera mounting solutions for motorcycles, with a kit for any bike and a proven track record of creating products that keep your devices safe, secure, and easily accessible. The Ultimate Add-ons product range is ideal for any rider, from the commuter to the round-the-world adventurer. Why shell out on an expensive GPS system when you could use your smartphone, keeping it charged and within easy reach to take photos of your travels at the same time? Ultimate Add-ons waterproof, shockproof and dustproof tough cases are available for all flagship smartphone models and are designed by riders for riders. Find out why Ride Magazine gives Ultimate Add-ons their coveted Best Buy certification. Keep riding this winter with Ultimate Add-ons. It's all about the journey. Now, folks, if you head to ultimateaddons.com and use the code TeapotOne10, you'll get 10% off. I've got an affiliate link for them as well, which I'll leave down below. So if you listen to the podcast, check out the show notes. If you're watching the vid, have a look at the vid description. And obviously with the affiliate, I also make a slight commission off that. Costs you nothing more. So a massive thanks to Ultimate Add-ons. We are also sponsored by as always, the Influencer Store. Influencer Store handle all my merch. You can see up there, I've got loads of hats, there's hoodies, there's all sorts of things. So if you head to TeapotOne.com, head to the shop, you can check out all the merchandise, and that is all handled by the folks over at the Influencer Store. The Influencer Store helps you build your brand, big or small, providing you with a solution and apparel. We help you to increase your fan base while supporting you with starting your own influencer clothing line with nothing more than just an idea or design, and there are no hidden costs. For more info, come check us out at theinfluencerstore.co.uk or drop us an email at online@influencerstore.co.uk for more information. Again, there'll be links down below, folks. Lastly, a big shout out to all of you over in the clan, over on Patreon. As always, folks, I keep saying this, but it is true. I literally could not do this full time without your support over there. So a huge, heartfelt thank you from me. If you'd like to go that extra mile and help support both the podcast and the main TeapotOne vid channel, then head to patreon.com/TeapotOne. Again, links down below. A massive thanks to each and every one of you who's listening or watching the podcast. I love doing the podcast. I really do. And I love getting all the feedback from you, from all the various different guests that we've had. If you could be so kind, on whatever platform it is that you're listening or watching the podcast, if you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify in particular, you can rate the podcast on there. Obviously, a 5-star rating goes a long way to help boost the podcast up through the ranks. And if you're watching the video, just give it a like, give it a comment, and both video and audio, if you share that with everyone that you think might be interested, that would be a massive help. All right, folks, let's get back to it. Right, gents, apologies about that. I am back, but obviously it's a different camera. I don't know why it's done that. It's done it a few times with this GoPro camera.
Have you tried turning it off and then turning it back on again?
The problem, I would normally, but the problem when we're running this is that I don't know if I turn this camera off and restart it, will it reconnect?
Have you tried hitting it with something heavy?
Let me try.
Don't do that, Bruce. Don't do that.
Hitting it with something heavy. Yeah, the sound technical thump. Yeah, that's the one to try.
Violence and technology, not good bedfellows.
Not normally. No,
that's a Jurassic Park quote.
Is it?
Yeah.
Which character said it?
The techie guy.
The T-Rex.
Yeah.
Right. Chris has also got another question. Dedicated sat-nav or mobile phone app for GPX files.
Dedicated every time.
Yeah.
Dedicated
we initially
every time.
chatted about that, didn't we?
Yeah. Phones crash. The screens aren't visible in sunlight.
You lose Wi-Fi. You lose signal. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
See, I'm a phone convert. I go phone now.
Oh,
you're
really?
Wrong. Yeah,
you're wrong.
It's okay to have an opinion, but that one's wrong.
And you're not plagued. You're not plagued with issues.
No, not. I have been in the past, but I think I know my way around them now. So if I'm going into Europe, I just know to download the map for where I'm going before I go, and then when I cross into that country, I can switch my app to offline mode. So it's not looking for a phone signal anymore. Yeah. It just works purely off the map that's on the phone.
Yeah, but then somebody will ring you up and your maps disappear, and by that time you've crashed into a hedge. And
that is a massive pain in the arse. Yeah. That is a big pain in the bum for sure. Yeah. But a sat nav app is either free or below 100 quid. Whereas, what's the GPS nowadays?
I got a Garmin XT, which I'd love because it's so simple to use and it works. And I think full price for about 400 quid, but you can usually get them for around 250.
Oh, okay.
So it's a fair chunk of cash.
Mm-hmm.
But what are your pros then, Bruce, for not having a dedicated sat nav? Or do you just you've got one thing to charge and look after?
Yeah, I think when I started using the phone, modern sat navs didn't have the ability to do like bike specific route tracking, which I know pretty much they all do that now, but at the time they didn't. So it was a bit of a novelty for me when I first got the app. It was like, oh, this actually feels like it's specifically for bikers rather than just a sat nav that they say, "Oh, this is a bike sat nav," but it's just the same as you're using a car. And now I think I'm just so used to it. Like, I used to have to plot my routes on Basecamp and then transfer them across to my old Garmin Zumo, and that was just such a headfuck. I hated it. Whereas using this app now, I can literally just tap on the screen, just nice and quick, bang, 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 or I can do it online in the browser, and it automatically syncs it to the phone app straight away. So I think it's just ease of use now, and I'm used to using it. So it's what you know, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I'm sure. I bet if I saw what you were using, I'd probably go, right, I see. Mine does look pretty shit in comparison. Yeah,
I'll actually have my phone there as well. So things like if you're looking for a campsite or a restaurant or something like that, you can use Google Maps to actually then direct you to the restaurant. So it's good to have both anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Right, next one, Charlie Callard. Evening all, hope you're all fitting well. Evening, Charlie, how you doing, pal? So, as you're all adventurers and off-roaders, if you were given an unlimited budget, where would you go? What would you go on, and what would you take with you? Okay, dream trip.
Well, I feel I'll go for it. I feel like for the last 10 years, I avoided getting my bike license for some reason till about 2009, or at least I wasn't really traveling till just about 2009. And slowly I've been trying to sort of tick places off. So it's hard for me to get into that mindset of dream trip because I'm just really trying to go to Morocco, go to Norway, go to Iceland. So once I've sort of got the next trip into my head, I can't really think beyond that. So my next trip that I'd love to do would to go up through Scandinavia and go up through Finland. I don't really sort of have any great aspirations to ride across Siberia and down through America. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm got to still have a limited imagination, and I'm still thinking about places I can just hop on a ferry and get to, and still have quite an exciting time.
So you put a place in your mind. That's where I want to go, and then you just make the plan and you go there. Tick. Yeah. And then you work on the next one and the next one. Yeah. Great. Awesome.
I think everywhere is the answer, isn't it? Really, I'd like to go everywhere. I think if I had to choose somewhere, it would be South America, probably. Travel through South America because it looks so beautiful, incredible variety. I'd like to do South America.
Do you think you? I mean, do you think you ever will?
To be honest, I don't. I don't think I ever will because I have a full-time job. I've got 3 kids who 2 of them are old enough to fucked off, but they haven't fucked off yet, and probably won't for some time.
Could you not? I mean, you can obviously get away to go to Spain or to Morocco. So the beauty of today's world is that you fly into a country, and there's companies there where you either hire or they go and they'll take you away.
Absolutely, I think this is something we cover on our podcast quite a lot. Is just talking to citizen travellers that can't afford to take a year off, or don't have a trust fund backing them up to do these kinds of things. So I think there are a lot of people that will fly into somewhere for 2 weeks, hire a bike, and do an amazing trip and come back. And I think for 99% of us, that's what we're limited to effectively. But again, it's so blooming expensive. And while I'm still supporting a family, I can't afford to do that.
It's a very interesting side, isn't it, to the chats? I always love getting down to the bones of what does this trip cost. It always used to really frustrate me seeing people's round the world trips and them saying at the end of it, just if you're thinking about doing it, just do it. And I was like, how are you doing it? I always wanted to know what the facts and figures were, and did they have a house that they were renting out? It was interesting last night, Bruce. We spoke to someone last night who's ridden down through Africa, and he'd saved up. I'm giving anything away in the story, but
$8,000.
But he'd saved up $8,000, and in the end, he'd come back, and you'd imagine he'd come back saying, "I actually spent 10." He came back having spent 2.5 of his 8,000,
and that included $800 worth of
the big 5 and aeroplanes.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think I lost more than $2,000 just going through Mauritania. I just got robbed of everything every time.
Africa does. Everybody's got nightmare stories about Africa, and I know you only did part of it, didn't you? And it's just, I mean, that that doesn't sound like, I mean, we spent a whole evening talking to our friend Neil last night about traveling through Africa, and it just doesn't sound like fun, a lot of it.
I think Africa is so unique. It's so different to most other places on the planet in terms of just what is the normal behavior, just what is normal. So I keep looking at this camera. What is the normal sort of way of life over there? You know, how do you interact with persons of authority, the police, the military, officials, all this sort of stuff. It's all to do with, you know, line a bit of pocket here and off we go. And it's just how they do things. And I think if you were like me and that's your first taste of the world outside of our little Western bubble that we live in within Europe,
European home.
Yeah, if that's your first taste, it's going to come as a really big shock. And like even Morocco was quite an eye opener for me when I first went to Morocco. And now I think Morocco is one of the friendliest places I've ever been. But I remember the first time being in there and just looking at people and thinking, Jesus, they're going to kill me, because they all look like pantomime villains, don't they? In like Morocco, Western Sahara. Yeah, they all look like pantomime villains that are going to have a knife in their teeth or down there, you know, but they're not. They're lovely, lovely people.
It's a very friendly place, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great place.
I mean, having ridden where you've ridden, Bruce, has it been a bit of an adjustment? I don't know if I've asked you this before about, you know, coming back, and when you do rides now, is it hard to get that high that you would have got riding through Africa? Or
No. I genuinely just love riding. So whether I'm riding into the town 2 miles down the road, but I go like a back country way, or heading off into Europe and I've just got the sun on the horizon and off we go, I just love being on a bike, to be honest. Yeah. And I'm not overly fussed where I'm going and where I'm riding, just that I'm riding, you know, and that's I just love the feeling of freedom that you get sat behind a set of bars.
Yeah. I've only just got my head around the question, and actually, do you know what? Of course, if I had unlimited funds, I probably would set off, and time. Yeah, of course, I'd probably set off.
You do the world trip,
try and ride around the world. Yeah,
but you have got the time and the money. Why don't you go?
and the beauty is that you could still do your podcast. You could. I mean, like you're laughing.
There's better people, Bruce.
But you know what I mean? Podcast holding me back. I would go, but I've got this podcast to do. I really.
But it's such a fantastic world that we live in now in terms of the technology, and that as long as you're not physically chained to a location in order to do your job, you can carry on that working life to an extent whilst traveling. It's totally possible, and I know loads of people out there that are doing it, you know, and they fund their trip by traveling for a bit, and then they stop, and then remotely they'll start working, and sometimes you've got to work for a couple of months, sometimes you have to work for a year, but you build up the funds again, boof, off you go again. And you know, it's like what you said, Clive, about there's people out there, there are lots of people out there who are doing their dream world trip, but they're doing it a week at a time, 2 weeks at a time, you know, every year, every couple of years, they just get a week or two and they go off and they tick the next stage off, come back home, get back to normal life. And then the next opportunity that comes, they fly back over, pick up where they left off, carry on going. You know, it's okay. It's not the big all-in-one trip, is it? But I always say to people that say, I can't afford it, I haven't got the time, blah, 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 blah. Okay, no problem. If that is your roadblock, then you're not going to do it at the moment. You just won't do it at the moment whilst that is in your head. You have to adopt the mindset of, I want to do this. I'm going to do this. How do I do it? And then you just have to figure out a way. Like most of us, it's credit cards. You know, I remortgaged. I worked for 3 years. I got some money off family. And I had 4 or 5 credit cards, max to the hilt. I came back with a shit ton of debt. And it took me probably 5 years to pay that off. But I managed to do my trip, you know. And okay, you might come back and think, you know, 50 grand of debt, is that worth it? For me, it was, because it changed me and it changed my life. So,
yeah, what if you've already got the 50 grand of debt?
I did have. I had almost 40 grand of debt. So I remortgaged my flat at the time to pay off that debt and buy my bike and go. And then I incurred a whole load of fresh debt with credit cards and loans from, my now wife and my father, which all have to be paid off once I got back. So, yeah. But it's possible.
Done.
It's that.
It's possible, yeah.
It's just right. I have to do this. I think... I think that's the big difference between the people who go, oh, it's my dream trip, I'd love to do that, and those who go, I have to do it, I've got to do it, and they're the ones that are going to go away and do it. But you just have to figure out your how. Everyone's got a why, but it's the how. You have to figure out your own how, and there's no easy way unless you win the lottery, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. Charlie's got a second question. If you could only eat one chocolate bar, or if you're a savoury fiend, one flavour of crisps for the rest of your life, what would it be? So one chocolate bar or one flavour of crisps?
Galaxy chocolate, Walker's salt and vinegar.
Galaxy chocolate, the girls' chocolate.
Yeah, no.
What are you saying? What are you saying? This is what I mentioned earlier about having to edit your sexism out.
Yeah, but he's got a point.
It's very easy. That's a great easy question, isn't it? Because I think most people
loves chocolate.
Yeah, I do love chocolate. Big part of bike trips. And I'm terrible on bike trips. There's a lot of indulgence when it comes to chocolate on bike trips. It's kind of a get my food for tonight and a massive bar of chocolate for the tent.
Yep, totally
sorted. But salt and vinegar crisps, the only true flavour of crisps. And any sort of dairy milk. I'm a real Philistine when it comes to chocolate. Just plain, not plainer, but the plainer in terms of, don't buy me any quality chocolate. It won't be appreciated.
Wasted on you.
I said fruit and nut, but I meant whole nut. Cadbury's whole nut. Oh God, yeah. Or peanut M&Ms. In fact, any chocolate, just give it to me and I'll eat it till I'm in a diabetic coma.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Pretty much.
But also, if you're in a foreign land, it's quite exciting getting the chocolate you've never seen before, isn't it?
Not in America. Terrible chocolate in America.
It's horrible in America, isn't it?
It's like cardboard.
Oh, is it like Yorkie chocolate in America?
No,
it's not even that nice.
Oh,
no. Like Hershey bars. You hear about Hershey bars. I remember growing up hearing about Hershey bar, and the first time I went to the States, I saw one. It was like, oh wow, horrible. It's like eating a tramp's sock. It was minging. Not that I've ever eaten a tramp sock. It's like cheesy chocolate, you know what I mean?
What are they doing? They're just not putting the same amount of sugar in or different sugar? What's going on?
They're not following the Cadbury's recipe, I'll tell you that. There's not a glass and a half in it. Cool. But I'm with you on the salt and vinegar crisps.
Yeah.
Biker's crisp, isn't it?
But what happened? When did they stop putting salt and vinegar crisps in blue packets and start putting them in
Nobody
green?
cares. Shut up. What a
No,
question.
I care. I don't do change. Clive, I don't do change. I'm not for this. I don't like all this modernism.
This whole Snickers thing, for fuck's sake.
Marathon.
Yeah.
Marathon.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why and Jeff, why is it now Sif?
It's a really easy answer because it's international branding, isn't it? So they had different brands in Europe and America than the ones that they had in the UK. So it's a case of why do we have to keep changing all the different advertising and branding? We can have one brand throughout the world.
What's going to make
sense? What happens when you give up the empire? We owned the world at one stage. What's going on?
This is we don't do politics in our podcast, Bruce.
Can I just say one of the 3 jokes that I've committed to memory?
Go on.
What's got a hazelnut in every bite?
Monkey shit.
Squirrel shit.
Okay. It's not funny though, is it?
Oh, wow.
Joke. I've got one for you. I've got one for you. How does an elephant ask for a bun? Can I have a bun, please?
Oh, come on.
Oh, Jesus.
It's one of my favourites.
If you're listening to the podcast, just don't even bother watching a YouTube video. Wow. Right.
Another easy one. Give us another easy one.
Right. Okay. The last one from the clan. And this one is, sorry, Charlie. Thank you very much for your questions, pal. The next one is Pete English. How you doing, Pete? Hi, guys. Hope you're all fit and well. Great to see the adventure guys on and great to see you have more off-road heroes on, Bruce. Hopefully we can get some tips for our next sand riding adventure. I'm actually off to Morocco with Pete in July, believe it or not.
Awesome.
Getting off the tarmac and onto the dirt has been a passion of mine since I was about 10 years old, from the late 70s on BMXs to riding and competing in trials with my son from the early noughties. And now we're really enjoying the trails on our enduro bikes. I personally treat all lanes and the people who use them with the respect we all deserve, and I'm really lucky up here where I ride in North Yorkshire, as I don't come across a lot of issues with ramblers, cyclists, and the horsey types. However, there's still a small amount of people who see us as the devil and are actively seeking to close the lanes we ride. So my question is, how do you find the attitude of others where you regularly ride, and with more and more lanes closing year on year, how do you see the future of our sport growing? Discuss.
Shall I answer that one, Noel?
Well,
because we have quite a different view.
Yeah, we do, don't we?
We do. Bearing in mind, we ride pretty much the same places. I think 90% of people, it's kind of part of their day out as well. They're reasonably happy to see you. You get a 10% of the population that aren't happy to see you. But the fact of the matter is, we live in a touristy area. We ride in a touristy area. We've ridden to the trails on our motorbikes. So there tends to be two arguments: is you're destroying the trails, or you're making a lot of noise in the countryside. The fact of the matter is, all of those people in the Lake District probably have driven past my house to get to the Lake District. And then they park in a passing place and go on their walks. So unless you've got public transport here, don't moan at me for enjoying my motorcycle in the countryside. The second point is, as a member of the TRF, we actually maintain the lanes. We're there to preserve the lanes. So we do an awful lot of work. I say we, the TRF, maybe not me so much, but we're there. We work with the local authorities to actually make sure the drainage works properly so the lanes aren't destroyed. But a prime case in point was the work that Steve Stout did on the old coach road, which is in the North Lakes. He raised £20,000. He got stone provided. They arranged working parties. He went through all the legal process with the local authorities to basically improve the drainage on this lane so it didn't get destroyed every time there was a heavy rainfall. We are now, as TRF members in Cumbria, regularly called upon to go and do maintenance work. So there's a lane that's just had some work done on it called the Breast High Pass, which is another fantastic mountain pass. And we've been invited to go and help do a tree planting couple of days. So it's things like that. We're not destroying them. Actually, what we're doing now is we're maintaining them now. So if you can have that calm, measured conversation with the people, that it was amazing. I remember riding across the old coach road, and somebody gave me an absolutely evil stare. And I'm thinking, you wouldn't be able to walk along this lane if we hadn't done the work that we had done. And I'm using the royal we there. I didn't do anything.
But it's very true, though, isn't it? It's by using the lanes, it's part of the conservation of them. Because if you're not using them, then chances are that the public access will eventually go anyway, won't it? Full stop. Absolutely.
And I don't necessarily agree that we are losing lanes either. Obviously, there was the NERC laws, back in the noughties, and we lost an awful lot of access then. There's the NERC, I can't remember, don't ask me what it stands for, but we lost an awful lot of lanes then. But since then, the TRF have worked pretty tirelessly to ensure that we don't lose too many more. So I don't think we're actually losing more lanes as time goes by.
That's sort of contrary to what I hear as an outsider, effectively, because I'm not in that world. But all I hear, and even when I've gone out with other off-roady types, that's what they say, is that more and more lanes, particularly down here, I know that in the southeast where I am in Kent, it seems to be more and more of the is it byways or bridle path, whatever it is that they're called? They're all
byways open to all traffic.
Yeah, they're all getting. That's right, boats. That's it, isn't it? Yeah, they're being restricted more and more and more down here in particular.
So what I would say to that is get involved with the TRF, get involved with campaigning, and be involved with making sure that we don't lose any more. But I think the TRF are doing a pretty good job of looking after the lanes.
Right.
Well, I agree with all the comments made by the previous speaker. But
do we need a timer?
My learned colleague. My only frustration is that I think as motorcyclists, motorcycles are annoying. And to people that don't ride motorbikes, who are just going out for a walk, be it across a mountaintop, or on an unsurfaced road, I think this is where the confusion comes in. But the motorcycles are annoying to them. And I think often I ride with people and we'll ride past somebody out for a walk. And then at the next gate, somebody will say, did you see that? Did you see that guy? Well, what did you expect? He's not going to give you a cheery wave and a big smile because he doesn't really. Your motorbike is annoying to him. So I think we expect too much of a response. If somebody doesn't give us a smile, kind of, what a bastard. Well, no, motorbikes aren't his thing. And he's not thinking of this road as an unsurfaced road. He's thinking of it as a nice little ancient path through the countryside.
What's wrong with people?
So I think we put too much pressure on people who don't like motorbikes to like motorbikes. They don't like motorbikes, and we should sort of learn to accept that a little bit. I also think sometimes. I was going to say, I think there is a little bit of. I'm full of contradiction on this, Bruce, as I am with most things. But obviously, a lot of people don't think of unsurfaced roads as unsurfaced roads. That's a big part of it for me. But sometimes you'll be on a track that probably isn't, what you would define as an unsurfaced road. It's a little tiny path. That might be their regular dog walk in the day, and motorbikes are just making it into a very difficult path to navigate. So again, they're justified in being annoyed about it, even though we might have a legal right of way. So
gotcha.
I think we should just lower our expectations of how other people should react to us a little bit, perhaps.
What are your thoughts on the impending sort of electric world that we're starting to get pushed down with a view to electric bikes for off-road? I've heard some points of view where people have said this could be a really positive thing for the off-road genre because you haven't got the noise pollution, all this sort of stuff. And then others who have said, well, you're just going to, rather than people hearing you coming, who are out walking the dogs and stuff, you're just going to be on them all of a sudden, and flying by them with hardly any noise. What's your thoughts on electric for off-road?
Get a bell. Number one, I have an electric bell on my electric bicycle. There's a funny thing going on in the Lake District at the moment where there's obviously a lot of people out on electric bikes and you can get into incredible areas on them. People haven't really got their head around where they can legally go and not go. So it's kind of the golden era in a way, because people are cycling to the top of Helvellyn, say, which in parts, it might be illegal or not illegal, who knows. But I'm thinking about electrically assisted bicycles, aren't I? Not actually electric bikes, but I don't know what the future is.
My view is buy all the internal combustion engine motorcycles you're going to need for the rest of your life and keep them in your garage forever. Electric is inevitable. We're definitely going down that route. There's still obviously an issue with range with motorcycles, but I think electric motorcycles, I've not ridden one yet, but they sound amazing. As in, they appear to be amazing.
And I don't know, and you will still hear them coming, surely.
Well, you do. I mean, they're not silent by any any sense. They are noisy. You will definitely hear them.
And you can put additional noises on if you need to.
Absolutely. I'm less convinced that we are going to be all electric. I did that around the UK ride on an electric bike, and at the end of it, I thought, well, like it or lump it, this is the future. We're going to be forced down this path, and I think we're going to be for a while, maybe 5 to 10 years. That might be the trajectory that we're taking, purely because I'm not naive. I keep looking at this camera. I'm not naive. The energy companies have invested a significant sum of money, and now manufacturers have invested a significant sum of money into electric. So they're going to want a return on that. But I'm quite excited about this alternative eco-fuel research that's coming in. Kawasaki, who else is it? Somebody else was doing it. They're starting to make some headway with effectively like carbon neutral eco-fuel. So, I mean, surely if you can take an alternative fuel source and put that into the internal combustion engine and get the equivalent sort of performance,
Isn't
Surely
it a plant,
that keeps everyone happy.
Isn't it a plant source though?
I'm not
The
sure.
alternative fuel. I think so. I think it
not
might be, which raises issues about growing crops for people that need to eat and things like that.
But then electric, we're stripping cobalt out of the earth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a finite resource.
Yeah.
So
I think hydrogen may be the future.
Yes.
It's all around us. Just can't get hold of it, can we? That's the problem at the moment.
It's so inefficient at the moment. That's why you get hydrogen buses, because on a large volume, hydrogen works and it it's efficient to that extent. But once you start coming certainly to like below a car, for a motorbike, it's just not possible yet. Although I think, is it Kawasaki? Is it Kawasaki's? One of the companies out there is just starting to make noises about a hydrogen-powered motorbike engine. They've not said the motorbike, but the engine. They're starting to power the engine itself off of it. So they're obviously making headways with that.
Yeah.
But whether that happens, who knows?
It's a big adjustment, isn't it, for us old timers? Because it's going to have to be a bike.
But it's not an adjustment you're going to need to worry about, Noel. Somebody your age, you'll be dead before it becomes an issue.
Well, exactly. But it's still going to have to be a bike that we enjoy looking at, isn't it? That's a bit of a challenge, I think.
And electric motorbikes are still going down the line of trying to look like a traditional motorbike. But it was interesting. I had Alex Sharp on from English Electric Motorcycles, and we were chatting about it. And there's no reason now you're not governed by the internal combustion engine. There's no real reason why you have to be confined by the traditional design constraints when you move to electric. And he was saying he was quite excited about the prospect of somebody out there just coming at this with a total fresh mind and going, right, okay, it's a two-wheeled mode of transport with an electric engine. Boom, go, and just see what they come up with. And you're starting to see it kind of with the likes of Verge. They have the wheels that don't have the central hub in it. It's the engine's in the sort of wheels, if you like, at the end. But I haven't looked into how they actually move, but it's weird looking. They seem to have no internal hubs in the engine or anything.
I quite like the one that Tom Cruise had in Oblivion. That was quite a good one.
I'm not sure that was real. I think that might have just been like TV film magic.
Well, there's the Canadian one, Damon. Have you seen that on social media? Yeah. That is one bike, but it has, I think it's at least two different setups. So you push a button and the bike, it will actually stretch out. So the rake will increase and, the rear swing arm will move further out. So you can go from like a naked, aggressive street bike to a more, not a chopper, but a more stretched out, almost sports bike type orientation.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite a thing to look at. Yeah. And that is on the production line. It might even be available now to buy and ride, or it will shortly. So that'd be interesting to see what that one's going to be like.
Clive, how many good riding years have you got left?
So a friend of mine who works for the NHS has studied these things. And he basically said to me, if you've got any money, spend it all before you get to 72.
72?
Because after that, it's like it falls off a cliff. You can't do obviously there are people that break the rules, but once you get to 72, you're knackered.
That's interesting, isn't it? That's a bit of inside information.
Yes, that's
14 good years left in me.
That's closer to me than the other way. And I'm not.
Yeah.
72.
No. Oh no, that's horrible! Jesus, what a downer.
Well, what were you basing your calculations on then, Bruce? What age?
I don't think I'll get to old age. I'll just
fade away.
I'll be halfway around a corner and fatal intervene, and that'll be it. So
it's what he would. Well, how do you feel about the whole? He died doing what he loved doing. I've always hated that phrase.
Yeah, me too.
I always think no, he might have loved doing it. He certainly didn't want to die doing it.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you know? I don't really want to think about. I don't really want to think about the end and getting old, and I don't want to get to the stage where you can't do the things that you love. But 72. Obviously that's in it. Yeah, Yeah, that's inevitable, isn't it? I think if you manage to live to a ripe old age, then you are going to get to that stage where you can't chuck a leg over the bike. But I just don't want to think about it.
Right. Let's not talk about it anymore.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Cheers, Clive.
Yeah.
This was you. That was you.
14 years left.
72. Right, gents, that's all the clan questions. We're going to move on to Instagram. Do you need a toilet break or anything?
I'm okay.
No. You're all right. Are you sure?
I'm good.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Need to change your bags. You're all good.
I'll just go for now you mention it, I'll go for a quick one.
Oh,
okay.
Gosh.
Right, quick. Let's talk about him.
Yeah, I know. Oh, he's dreadful, man. Swears he's got a mouth like a sailor. Kisses his mother with that. Unbelievable.
I was wondering what you were going to say. Oh, my God. There are a shed ton of questions over on Instagram here. So, but you lads, you said you've had a little look at these. Is that right?
I think so. Well, do you know what? It was my girlfriend that drew my attention to them because I sort of thought, oh, no, there's not a lot of questions going around, is there? But she said, oh, well, you haven't seen. Look at the Instagram account. I hadn't seen it, so I had a quick glance through them. But
yeah. It is weird across the social media platforms because obviously I put it out on my Patreon, which tends to be where I get most of the questions, but then also put it up on Instagram and Facebook. And like my Facebook is pretty big. It's like 100 odd thousand followers on that, which I am very aware that the vast majority of them came from a viral vid I did about the world trip. So, there's going to be loads of people on that who don't religiously follow the Facebook page. But still, I get way more interaction on Instagram than I do on Facebook for sure. Yeah. It's crazy,
isn't it? Yeah.
Right, he's back. Stop talking about him. Stop talking.
Apart from that, he's all right.
There's all right. Nice things you could have said.
And then he said,
he means well. That's a lot of stuff.
I'm not sure I do.
Right, across to Instagram. So that's at TeapotOne Insta. And obviously, I'll leave all the links for the TAMP socials down below. First one, Ricardo Bobby.
This is a really rude, cheeky question, Scott.
I think there's a few of these. Let's see. Why all the big bike bashing? Light-hearted banter, or did their ability to ride one properly disappear with their hairline? Also, why do their group trips always look a bit kumbaya? Too much adventure spec kit, or is it all in the edit?
He's a very funny man. Scott wrote a brilliant review for us as well, which we actually used in our socials. First of all, I've got a full head of hair, I'll have you know. That's the main thing. We really don't have a problem with big bikes. We like big bikes too. We have big bikes, as I've said already. Do you know what? I did actually see this question, and I thought about the kumbaya bit. But the six of us that go off and we make the films with Greg Villalobos, available on all good YouTube channels.
Incidentally, the trips aren't really about going off to make a film. The films are fairly incidental, aren't they? Weirdly. I mean, we do talk about them a little bit as time has gone on, but they're Greg's very good at filming when we don't realize he's filming. He's filming on a SLR sort of looking camera. So often you just think he's taking a photograph.
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll all film various things, and it's almost like it's not like we're on a Top Gear trip where we have to stop every 5 minutes to set up a shot. We just film as we enjoy our holiday.
It's only when the drone goes up, isn't it, that you really think, oh, this is going in a film.
I guess so, yeah.
But all of the times, it just happens incidentally.
Yeah. But we are very, very lucky. There's the six of us just get on really well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really easygoing bunch of blokes, and we have a laugh. And, what you see is what you get. We're not faking it. That's just us on our little...
Yeah, because we don't know that a film's been made of it.
No, true.
That is from somebody that does film all the time when I'm away on trips. And I go away with different groups of people. Some people I've never met before. But everybody's watched the vids. So everyone comes away on my trips and tours knowing that I make vids about them. I make vids about the trip, and you will be involved in that vid if you stand in front of me or chat to me when I've got a camera on the go. But the amount of people who either totally clam up and can't relax, they can't chill out as soon as they see the camera, or they're like, oh no, don't put me on camera. And it's like, you've come up and chatted to me whilst I'm recording. You're going on film. It's happening. But I think that's good that is it Greg you said that does the filming?
Yeah.
It's good that he he doesn't make you feel like under any pressure that, all right, you need to act. You need to act now. Do something.
Yeah, he's really good at it, isn't it? And I think he does often feel guilty that he feels like he's slowing us up. Everybody always seems very apologetic when the drone comes out. Everyone secretly is happy for a bit of a break, and it's great fun watching the drone go up. So as I say, they're very easy to do. He's a real talent at it in many ways.
And as far as the Adventure Spec clothes go, he works for Adventure Spec. We get loads of free kit. What are you going to do?
Nice little plug. It's got to be done.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Moto Mitch UK has replied to Ricardo's comment, and he said, I'd say 80% of it could never go on camera, but we make and share our own private edits. Oh, how much to see one of the not for public consumption edits?
Who wrote that?
This is Adam.
Moto Mitch.
Oh, it's Adam. Of course it is. Yeah, 80% of what he says doesn't get on camera. That's for sure. Adam is one of those people that normally clams up on camera, but he's one of the fucking funniest people you'll ever come across. He in the last video, a lot of him talking into his camera, into his helmet, was actually used in the film, and a lot that wasn't properly funny.
God, he's good.
yeah.
But he's kind of taken on. He's sort of the young. Is he the youngest? Yeah, he's the youngest one.
By a long way.
So he's kind of like we think of him as the. I was going to say child of the group. The son. What am I trying to say?
I've got you.
Very fatherly instincts towards him.
Yes. Come here, young Padawan. Yeah.
And he won't respond well to that if ever he hears me say that.
Will he not?
No, I don't think so.
He's an absolute riding demon as well. He's like a junior enduro champion. He's very good. Very good.
Every bike group has one of those, don't they? Every group has somebody who's a lunatic, and then someone else who is is just incredibly proficient on a bike, one or the other,
Yeah.
Hopefully the two don't meet, but sometimes they do, don't they? And it's like, oh God, just let them go and do their thing. Off you go.
Yeah.
I'm just editing my Scotland tour from last year at the moment, and I can record all the comms. So listening to everybody chat, a lot of the time, some people just don't care that they're on, that they're being recorded, and other people forget. So maybe they'll clam up when you put a camera in front of them, but because they're on the comms, they're just chatting away. It's like Morse code when I'm trying to edit it, because I've got to bleep out all the swearing. So it's just like, baby. Oh dear. What are we going to do with this?
Comms is a bit of a new thing to our group, isn't it? We've kind of ridden on quite a lot of trips with no intercoms, which now I kind of think we were missing out in a big way. And people started to get them.
Years to convince you to get one.
Yeah, you did, yeah. But there's a funny, I've talked about this on the podcast before, but when I went away with everybody last year into Spain, the intercoms would kick in and out, it seemed, and you'd lose touch with someone, and you could never have more than 3 on, or certainly not on the one I was using on my Senna. But with Greg and Will, 2 people had swapped bikes, and then they got back on their own bikes. And all of a sudden, their intercoms kicked in with mine, and they started having a conversation about their bike swap and what they thought of each other's bikes. It was just like the best podcast I've ever heard, because these people speak brilliantly and they're really knowledgeable. So
top 3, maybe. Top 3.
Yeah,
maybe.
Top 3. So I kept quiet. Now, of course, normal etiquette when you sort of were in range again was to sort of declare yourself, yep, I'm here.
Yeah.
But I just thought, I don't want to interrupt the flow of this. I'm just going to listen to it until they sort of start talking about something else. And then I'll kind of say, I'm here. So they talked about 15 minutes about the bike swap and what they thought. It was fantastic. And then as soon as they got off topic, I kind of said, that was brilliant. I just said, that was amazing. Now, Greg went absolutely loopy because he said, I could have said it. Yeah, because I hadn't declared myself in the group. I said, well, yeah, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow of it. But of course, I fully accept that it was.
You can't get the arse with somebody for not saying that they can hear what's talking about when you're on a comms unit and you've connected people within it. What I find on the comms sometimes though is like obviously I use the best comms out there, which are Cardo.
I may be sponsored.
Yeah,
it's not sponsored actually, but they gave me the edge for free. And you can have up to 15 people connected on it. Yeah, and there's 15 of us go away on my tours. There's myself and Simon Weir and a maximum normally of 13 punters. So I think on the Scotland one, I think we had 12 people connected on the comms. And initially, everyone's just all excited. You know what it's like when you're away on tour. It's like, yes, like your first day of school holidays. And it's just a cacophony of noise. You know, like there's no etiquette. Everyone's just talking, trying to get in. It's like, oh, just switch it off. I'll come back tomorrow when it's calmed down.
You could have started like a choir practice whilst you were riding along. Now, Clive's going to talk about mesh. I know he's going to talk about mesh.
Yeah. We've updated to send a mesh now, and that is once you've paired, it is so simple.
Oh yeah,
because once you've paired once, you just switch them on and you're connected straight away. Brilliant.
Yeah.
But a Cardo unit's really good. Does any Cardo unit connect to lots of different ones?
No, yeah, I mean, Senna and Cardo are pretty much of a muchness especially when you move up to the sort of flagship models. They both use the mesh technology, but the really annoying thing is that they won't talk to each other. So you can't connect the Senna mesh to a Cardo mesh. You know, they'll only connect, Cardos will only connect to Cardos, and Sennas will only connect to Sennas via mesh. You can bridge Bluetooth units in from any manufacturer, but the Bluetooth, the sound quality is not as good, the range isn't as good, connection's not as stable. So you really do notice it when you have people all on either Senna, all on mesh, or Cardo, all on mesh. That's when it's pucker. It's not faultless. It's not as great as the PR and everything will tell you. You know, you still are pretty much line of sight with people. And if you get a mountain in the way, then, the connection will drop, but it will reconnect as soon as you come back together again. It just reconnects. So it's a nice, almost faultless system.
But this has been a big shock to me that all these different intercom brands don't talk to each other. I just thought it was like
crazy,
CB radio. It's madness.
Yeah.
It's so
I think it will eventually, but it's just purely to get you onto their what do they call it? Their ecosystem. Like with Apple. Like Apple will not talk to anybody, whereas Androids will. And I think Cardo and Senna are taking that mindset. They want you to either buy Senna or buy Cardo, but I think if they just allowed the two to talk via mesh, it would just be so much better. So much better.
I think it'll get there eventually.
I think
probably just one's probably trying to kill the other one at the moment.
Yeah.
And eventually, if they both survive, then they'll make the technology work.
Absolutely.
It sounds like I'm going to have a great Cardo unit and a great Senna unit, doesn't it? Depends on the amount of bike.
I'd get a Cardo. Funnily enough, you might know somebody that can get you a 20% discount on a Cardo.
but then I'm snookered, because next time I go away with Clive, he's going to be saying, "Well, you haven't got mesh, so you can't be in on this conversation."
Just buy another one. It's fine.
That's what I say to people, is that, when people ask, what do I get, Cardo or Senna? And I say to them, well, within your group, what do people use? As you just said, if you've got a group who all use Senna, there's no point you buying the Cardo. Conversely, if you're in a group of Cardos, there's no point you buying the Senna. So you just, whatever anyone else has got. Okay, next one, Reed's Rides. Podcast sweepstake. How long till Clive swears, and will Noel be on time? I don't know what the time was.
No, I think. Well, you two were early, I think.
Did we swear early on?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I did.
I thought you were quite civilized, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was on my best behaviour, but I've had a beer now, so fuck it.
Let's crack on.
See, this is why I can never let my mum hear these. I told my mum, Bruce, is 90, and I've sort of not told her about the podcast just for, I don't know, it just seemed she didn't need to know about it, but she's heard about it.
Right.
For the first time last weekend. So I was telling her about how amazingly successful the whole thing is. Of course, I couldn't describe it as a podcast. I had to describe it as a radio show, because I knew that was just a waste of time saying podcast. At the end of it, the first thing she said was, "I had no idea you were articulate enough to do this."
Didn't know you could talk.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? She wasn't kidding. And then at the end, she asked if I would be able to record it for her. That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Just say yes. Yes, I can.
I'll get it on a cassette and give it to you.
I think she'd really like me. I think it'd be okay.
Yeah.
Just go around for tea.
Yeah. Mum's like me. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. She uses all the same swear words you use. So yeah.
Exactly.
Does when you're not around. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the thing, isn't it? I think
no.
People forget that. That's like our parents are people too. And like, I remember the first time I heard my dad swear, it was after my mum had died. And I remember my dad swearing, and I had never heard my dad swear in 40 odd years of life. Never heard him say a bad word. And then it all came out, and it was like he was sat. In fact, I think I was on the big trip, and I'd gone to South Korea, and I'd met up because my dad was working out there, and I'd gone to where he worked in the oil shipyards, and I was in his office with all the guys that he worked with. And imagine what a group of lads are like when they get together, and that's just what it was like. I was sat there listening to my dad swear at like 37 or whatever I was, 36. And it was like, oh my God, it's like listening to Santa Claus swear. No.
That's hilarious.
Right, next one. Saddle Sword Jenko. Do Clive and Noel live together?
That's an easy one, isn't it? No, we don't. We both have partners, female partners.
Reed's Rides has replied, and he says, I always imagine it's a bit like a Morecambe and Wise scenario.
In many ways, actually.
How long have you guys known each other?
It was an internet date, wasn't it?
It was. On motorcycles.
Yeah, and I think I had joined the TRF, and I just put on the forum, is anyone else...
Does anybody else not have any friends?
Yeah, it was pretty much that. Yeah. And Clive, being the lovely man he was, said, yes, let's go out. And it all started from that, didn't it?
I reckon it was about 2007.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you know, like, when people say stuff like that, I think to myself, it's like last year, a couple of years ago. No, that's 15 years? Yeah, 16 years ago now.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that's incredible.
I know. It's gone by as quickly as it'll take us to get to 72. Hasn't it? It's just gone like that. It's just gone like that.
God. Don't.
If we've learnt nothing, we can finally...
Clive, do you know how many people you've just put into a depressed state with what you said earlier about 72?
I don't know. I've got another 14 years to go, and that's that. If I think back to 2007, which was 16 years ago, I'm only halfway there on my journey of motorcycling. Yeah, that's okay.
But it might motivate you to get out there and do the things that you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Progress from I want to I must.
Yeah,
there we go.
There you go.
There's a target.
But no, we don't live together. I think our wives see each other more than we do, don't they?
They do. They do some bits of work together as well, don't they? So they probably like each other far more than we actually like each other.
Next question. Just Will Collins. Big bike or little bike? Dream Tampod guests. And if a woodchuck could chuck wood, how much would a woodchuck chuck? Can't believe
we've done the big bike, little bike thing, haven't we? We've done the big bike, little bike. Okay. Dream guests.
Yes.
Gosh. Do you know,
go on.
It's been an interesting journey, hasn't it? Because basically we started off just getting people we know on. Mm-hmm. And now I'll write to people randomly. I think we talked about this before, Bruce. And you don't expect a response from anybody. But now people actually do respond, and we're finding it easier for people to say, yes, I'll come and do your show. Dream guest, blimey.
Would you think it would be fair to say that we've been limited by our imagination so far? I feel that way. Well,
you might feel that way, but because you haven't flexed your imagination in any way, shape or form to actually find guests.
But I really think that's true, because as time's gone on, I've kind of thought, first we sort of spoke to the immediately obvious people that we knew who'd done something, and we ran out of those people quite quickly. But it's only recently that I've thought, of course, there's what's his face? Of course, there's what's her name? Names that weren't immediately obvious are now very obvious.
Austin Vince is... He's the Don, isn't he? Really, he's the Don of adventure motorcycling stuff, and he was on, and he was utterly brilliant. One of my favourites.
He's a funny guy.
For our genre of motorcycling, that was a huge one for us, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, massive.
Have you had his miss? Have you had Lewis on? Lewis Price?
Not yet. We really should actually.
I've been thinking I'd like to get the two of them on. Lewis is awesome as well. The stories they've got is incredible.
The books are fantastic. I've read most of her books.
Yeah. But of course, the more you do, the less imposter syndrome you sort of feel you're suffering from. You feel
it's hard to begin with, isn't it?
It really is.
Why would anyone want to have a chat with me? Yeah.
Whereas
Have you
now,
had Joey Evans on?
No, we haven't. He's the Dakar guy, isn't he? He's done.
Mate, I'm not kidding you. It's probably the most emotive and impactful conversation I've had, certainly around motorcycles. The story that guy has is just phenomenal. He will literally have you like gasping in shock, crying your eyes out, and then crying with laughter. It's amazing. Just what a story. What a story.
Oh, well, I'll drop him a message then, definitely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, he is 100% absolutely worth getting on. Fantastic chap to talk to.
I tell you, a lot of people you write to and you don't hear back from them. Itchy Boots. I wrote to Itchy Boots just on the off chance and didn't expect anything back. She's one of I think she's the only person that's actually bothered to reply and said no. But it was really nice. I felt very warmly towards her because she'd actually made the effort to say, no, I'm too busy. I'm releasing 3 videos a week. I haven't really got time to do it. Sorry.
Yeah,
but, thanks for thinking of me.
No, I didn't get that. She never. I've DM'd her a couple of times and never even had a reply. But So I mean, as you just said, she is very productive. God, the amount of content that she chucks out, incredible.
Yeah. But what I really like about what we do, Bruce, and I think you do it as well, is to get people on that have travelled and done various things that haven't bothered to film themselves or haven't recorded themselves anyway, because their stories are just as good. What was the guy that told the Bulgaria story? He was amazing.
It wasn't Tim Chapman, was it?
Tim Chapman, yeah. What a great episode that was. And, Tim was travelling on motorbikes back in the 80s. And he just didn't have a video camera with him, but he still had the same experiences, and he came back with some amazing stories, which he told on our podcast. So, if anybody has got a story like that, we encourage everybody to get in touch with us, and we'd love to have you on at some point.
So, so go on.
Well, I was going to say I'm constantly amazed at how well people speak on the podcast. If you were to ask me about a trip I'd done, I'd kind of abridge it within an inch of its life. I'd have told you about it in 30 seconds. But people like Neil last night, what a fantastic... I came out of this podcast we did last night and I went back upstairs. I just felt I'd been through Africa. He told the story nice and chronologically. But, all the mental images it sort of puts in your head, it was just like going on a trip listening to, which sounds a bit corny, but it really was. Yeah. But people speak so well on the podcast. I'm always gobsmacked by how well people speak. They're articulate, unlike me.
Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of it is to do with social media now, isn't it? It's like people are much more media savvy to an extent, in that people are listening to podcasts, they're watching YouTube vids, what's the word? They're taking in all the content across all the social media platforms. So I think it has made people, especially if you have a story to tell and you've been invited on somewhere to talk about that story, then you're perhaps maybe going to put a little bit more thought into how you deliver that now compared to 10 years ago, maybe, when there wasn't the podcasts and everything like that, because there wasn't the expectation. Whereas now people expect to be entertained to an extent, I think. Maybe I'm wrong in that.
The shared passion helps enormously, doesn't it?
Oh, totally.
You could speak to somebody who just started riding a bike 2 weeks ago. You'd still have a great chat with them about motorbikes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'll tell you what, we've Neil was traveling through Africa at the same time as Dylan Wikarama, who wrote the book and made the film Where the Road Ends or something like that. So he basically
fantastic story.
Turned his BMW into a raft and sailed to Darien Gap. And he's agreed to be on the podcast. So I bought the book. I've watched the film. I wanted to read the book before we get him on the podcast. So he will be, I think, a bit of an awesome guest.
Wow. Is that just
have you got him coming on?
This is a few weeks ago that Neil introduced us. And
you're going to beat me.
Great.
I contacted him, during the pandemic, and I was dealing with his wife, but I can't remember where they were. They live over Switzerland way, don't they? Keep looking at this camera. Yeah. They live over Switzerland way. So he said, yeah, he'd come on the podcast, but then I think he was away traveling, and we were supposed to tie up at the end of it, and we just never have. But yeah, I saw the film. I watched the film, and we was just like, I'd heard of his story, but I'd never actually read the book. And then I saw there was the film. Thought, right, I'll watch that, and that'll give me a little inkling. Yeah. God, it's an incredible story that he's got.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. God knows how he's still alive.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, I look forward to listening to that then when he's on yours. Nice one. Right, future map of the past. If Noel was allowed to have one of Clive's bikes, which would it be and why? Likewise for Clive, which of Noel's bikes would you choose and why?
This is probably the hardest question of the evening, I think.
I've got two Hondas. It's going to be one of them, isn't it?
I know, well, it is. But the sad truth, none of Clive's bikes really appeal to me very much. We're quite different, aren't we, in our bike choice, I think?
Yes.
But weirdly, I'd probably go, God, don't tell him this. But the bikes he's got, because he's chosen a Honda that I probably wouldn't buy. He has a different eye for bikes. He likes really ugly square bikes. They look like they've been designed with a ruler and a pencil. But I'd probably go for Clive's old KTM out of the bikes that he's got.
Yeah, it's a 400 EXC, 2005. Yeah, amazing bike. Absolutely brilliant.
And what's the reason is behind that then?
Probably because I like the era it was born out of. I like the size of it. I've ridden... So it's not the same as Greg's, is it, Clive?
No, it's an earlier version and a 400 rather than the 450.
But they are...
You must have ridden it at some point.
Yeah, I will have done. They are exciting bikes to ride. Yeah. It's probably the worst bike he's got just because it's so old and everything's failing on it. But yeah, probably that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Clive?
I'd take all the things off it that he's added to it, probably.
The go faster parts.
I was just about to say that.
I'm known for my OEM kind of obsession. I sort of like things. I'll change things now and again, but I always end up just putting them back to how they came out of the factory and how they were designed initially. Probably that one. So this is going to be interesting. What's Clive going to say?
Well, part of me wants to take your trials bike off you just to annoy you.
Yeah,
that would make me happy.
Yeah,
but I think I'd probably go for the Honda XL 600L.
Yeah,
which is the old kind of Dakar style, big trailer, because it's a lovely looking, slightly ugly bike. But that'll
slightly
be the one.
Ugly. There's nothing ugly about it.
I can see it behind you now. It looks
19. Are you familiar with this bike, Bruce? It's 1987. It was kind of a Dakar copy. They did use them in the Dakar a little bit in the early days, but it's gorgeous. All bikes look gorgeous with a great big safari tank, don't they?
Is that the white and blue one?
Yeah.
Yes. And it's got dual headlights. Who doesn't love? Look what Ducati have done this year. Everybody always knew they loved dual headlights, but they disappeared for a while. But now they're back.
It looks like something that's missing off a Star Wars set.
Not at all. But it's a very, very pretty bike. It's got the classic gold rims and the red, white, and blue. Everything about it shouts beautiful.
That sort of Dakar style bike, that I think seems to be coming back. Dare I say? And I've heard whispers from a few people, possibly in the know, about the new GS, the new big GS, and it may have the fuel tank isn't actually going to hang over the side like the Enduro style tanks, but it's going to look like it does. The aesthetics of it, it's going to have that look, apparently. But none of the spy shots are showing this, but just what I've heard. So it might be true, it might not. Yeah. But it suggests maybe, and I've where else have I seen it? I've seen it somewhere else, and it's like, oh, is this style, this look, is that coming back into your more sort of conventional road-based adventure bikes?
Yeah, I don't know if it ever went away, really. As I said, big tanks have always looked great, haven't they?
People do love retros, don't they? Harking back to your own childhood, I think, like the Triumphs, the retro Triumphs, I just absolutely love them.
I can't believe Ducati got away with that bike. I don't even know what it's called, but it looks exactly like a sort of late 90s Africa Twin.
What, the sled?
The one that came out, the one that's just come out in the last sort of 12 months. What were they called, Clive? They were letting people test ride them at the ABR festival.
Oh, the new big Ducati adventure bike.
Is that a Desert X or something?
Yes, that's the one.
Yes.
Desert X.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be an incredible bike.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be an amazing bike.
I can't believe Honda haven't taken them to court and said, look, you've just copied our bike from 1996. What are you thinking?
Well, they've let it go, haven't they?
Yeah, they really have, yeah.
Oh, right. I've just seen the next question. Oh, this is awesome. Kernow Davy, Bob Lazar, discuss. You're welcome, Bruce. Oh, do you know who Bob Lazar is?
So I believe, is he a conspiracy theorist on alien invasions?
He is an American, is he a physicist? Or he's an American eccentric, basically, who says he was recruited to work in not Area 51, I think it was Area 53. It's like Area 51, but he was recruited to back engineer from UFOs that somebody, he's not saying it's the American government, but some organization had a whole load of these UFOs in hangars, and his job specifically was to back engineer, I think it was the propulsion system. So he's had this story and he's maintained this story since the 80s, and it's never varied off course. It's always been the same. And there's lots of other bits to it where people have come out and said he's a conspiracy theorist and he's lied about his education, he's lied about where he works. But he's then gone, right, come with me then. And he's gone to like these universities where he studied or taught. And he's gone in, and it's things like the security guard has gone, all right, Bob, how are you? And, and he's walked in, people have recognized him around the campus, and he's gone straight to to the rooms within the buildings where he would have been. And he's gone, right, this is such and such, and that's such and such. There's lots and lots and lots of other things. There's a very, very, very good podcast episode on Joe Rogan, but Joe Rogan takes him to not town. He takes him to court basically over the whole thing, and questions him about lots and lots and lots of different aspects of it. And you come away from it and you're like, well, whether it's true or not, the guy plainly thinks it is true. So you just don't know.
It's like all conspiracy theories, they're great stories, aren't they?
Yeah. It's very interesting. Very interesting. What are your thoughts on it?
Do you know, I didn't know nothing about him, but where is his propulsion system that has been working on for all these years? Because I keep seeing rockets exploding still.
That's the thing, yeah. Like he was talking about how they couldn't figure out what was how the craft was being propelled. They said it seemed to be something that was manipulating gravity. So it wasn't a traditional, suck, blow, bang type engine. It wasn't a case of either sucking wind in and using aerodynamics to create the lift and a propeller or a jet engine either to force you forward or suck you forward. There was none of that. They just they couldn't work it out. An interesting thing though. Convenient, yeah. An interesting thing, though, was he spoke about something called Element 15. No, was it Element 15? It was an element, anyway, that he spoke about, which hadn't been discovered or invented yet. And as it turns out, it was decades later in is it the Hadron Collider? They call it that.
Hadron,
great big massive, yeah. Where because they created like an artificial small Big Bang, they then created an element which they've called exactly the same as what he spoke about. And it's like, well, he speaks about this in the 1980s before it was ever discovered or allegedly discovered. And you're like, well, what's going on here? How's this work? I don't know.
But there never seems to be a conspiracy theory that with the passage of time, somebody comes out and says, that thing about that when that guy was saying that, it turns out it was true the whole time.
That's the interesting thing, isn't it? Yeah. There's a lot of very interesting podcasts around Bob Lazar and around an American Air Force captain, Captain David, is it Fravor? He talks about sightings, and not only does he talk about it, they've the instrument recordings from his fighter jet when he was flying it. So they've got the radar, they've got the video camera, they've got all the instrumentation readings, and it to the extent where like the American Navy's sort of come out and gone, these things have been around for years and we've got no idea what they are. And it's got to that stage, and you're like, okay, if it's not from outer space, then something's doing it, and who is it, and what are they doing? Does it mean the Russians or the Chinese have got?
It seems like the human condition, isn't it, to sort of hope that these things are true, because they're very interesting most of the time. But generally, I always think in life, it's not that exciting. It turns out that the answer will be quite dull. Well, the answer will be quite dull in the end, won't it?
Any conspiracy theory, it's kind of a bit of fun, but most of them are just nonsense.
But this guy obviously made a career out of it, and it's working.
Well, it's not a career. I mean, it's cost him his marriage and his job.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't make any money out of it.
All right.
It's an interesting podcast. It's well worth listening to. Yeah, the Bob Lazar one and the Commander David Fravor one. It's definitely well worth listening to. There's some proper lunatics out there for sure, but those two in particular are real. You come away from those podcasts with no answers, but you don't come away with it thinking, well, he's playing like an idiot. You come away going, I've got a lot more questions now. And, it's not about the validity of the person. It's, okay, so what was that then? What is it?
It's just great storytelling though, isn't it? It's like science fiction writers kind of invent things for their novels, which later, generations later become an actual thing. I think, if you sat down long and thought about it long enough and hard enough, you could come up with your own conspiracy theory.
Oh, and of course you could, but would you have evidence behind it?
Well, have you seen the evidence, Bruce, or have you just heard somebody talk about the evidence?
That's what I'm saying. Like the Commander David Fravor one. There's actual video evidence there. It's all there, backed up by the government, who are going, yeah, that is it. We don't know. Yeah. So when it comes to that, you're like, well, all right, okay, I don't know. I don't know.
I said let's not give Bob the oxygen of publicity.
Too late. It's like Olimoto is everywhere.
Well, not anymore, is he? Ollie's going underground.
Gutted.
Yes,
absolutely gutted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're not allowed to say what he's doing.
I give it 3 months. He'll be back.
You think?
Yeah. He'll be able to stand it.
Oh, he's a good boy. He's a good lad. Right.
We're going to keep talking about him. We've made that.
Obviously, it has to be done, doesn't it? Has to be done.
To me, I'm not going to.
Right, next one. Tony Lynn 587. P.S. Great podcast, everyone. Certainly makes good listening in a truck. Cheers, Tony. Thanks very much, pal. Glad you're enjoying it. Barney's Lanes. When they're out in the wilds and it's getting cold, who's the big spoon? You don't need to answer that.
So here's the truth of it. When you're out in the wilds, you really try and create as much tent distance as possible. And I'm as guilty as Clive for noises in the night. But yeah, it's always this kind of weird, kind of standoffish. I'm not going to not even going to get the tent bag out until I just see exactly where Clive's setting up.
So I find that really disappointing, because I always think of the six of us would just have our tents around in the circle, have a campfire in the middle, and we put our tents up, and you just go as far away as you can from everybody.
Everybody does.
It's so antisocial.
It's kind of a battle between me and Greg for who gets that position that's the furthest away.
And I ask Greg something personal?
Yeah.
No, sorry. Please finish. Please finish.
No, go on. I want the personal question.
Yeah. Are you a get up, get out of your tent and go for a pee person, or are you a pee bottle person?
En-suite facilities, you mean?
En-suite.
We've covered this in a podcast in the past. Yeah, you always have your en-suite facilities with you, mate, when you're camping. Well, in fact, I didn't and I've always thought about doing it. And then we were on a podcast and about 3 people were saying, oh, yeah, en-suite facilities. And I'm thinking, thank God for that. I can start doing it myself.
It's one of those things, that I did for a long time, thinking I was the only person in the world that did it.
Right.
But, before that, I've been on so many trips with Clive where you'll kind of hear his tent zzz in the night, and you'll hear him walking 300 meters to the toilet block.
Yeah, I've never done that. I was going to pee in a hedge.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
I used to get up all the time and go. I used to get up and go to the toilet, to the toilet block or go out the bush, whatever. And then, people started saying, "Oh, you got to have your piss bottle." And I was like, "What? Yeah. You're doing what?" I have a story about this. On the big trip, I was somewhere. In fact, I've talked about it in a podcast before, so I'll say it. I was in Japan, and I'd been invited to this bike club sort of annual family barbecue type event. So I was like, yeah, absolutely, because I was heading to Motegi. So I was like, yeah, it'd be great. Right in Mount Fuji, beautiful place. So we've gone, there's lots of beer and food, blah, 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 blah. Nighttime comes, time to go to the tent to sleep. So I get in my tent, and obviously during the night, what happens? You need to go to the bathroom, don't you? And I was just like, oh, God, can't be arsed walking. Like, it was a lot, not miles, but it was a long way to the toilet block. I was like, I'll just unzip the tent and, pee out the side. So I did that. That was me thinking nothing of it. I woke up in the morning, got out the tent, and little did I realise was that the ground, because the ground was so dry, there was now like a visible river from my tent all the way down the hill. And what's worse was that this river went straight to a whole load of other tents that were pitched at the bottom of the hill. I was just like, no. And I'd woken up quite early, so I was like, trying to kick sand over this thing, and all it did was it just amplified what was a thin strip was now like a 1 foot wide trench all the way down to these other tents. I was like, oh no.
Oh God.
Anyway. Sorry if you're watching or listening.
Does the bottle, is this, and the bottle, let's get into the nitty gritty of this. Does the bottle stay with you for the whole trip, or does it something gets changed?
I have friends who have a specific dedicated pee bottle
that they take away with them, comes home with them.
Wow. Yeah, they just rinse it out, and that's the pee bottle. Yeah,
right,
makes sense.
So Clive, you're still very new to this, then, aren't you?
Yeah, I had to research the average micturation of a 50-year-old adult man just to make sure I got a bottle that was big enough.
What was it? Surely it depends how much you've had to drink.
It was about 400 millilitres. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, no, my mates have got like these great big, like a big, massive, it's like a water duck. That's what they take away with them. It's huge.
I've only got a tiny pee-pee, so I don't need that much.
But it's life-changing, isn't it? It's so great not to be able to, not to have to get out of the tent at night.
Do you do it at home as well? You do, don't you?
He just swamps his bed. Job done.
Don't tell you what happens here. But do you suffer from that thing where when you're sleeping in a tent and you wake up and you're dying for the loo, even with ensuite, you'll lie there for ages thinking, why am I awake? Why am I awake? But and really what the reason is, but you'll put it off for as long as possible.
Absolutely.
To put off the inconvenience of getting out of a warm sleeping bag.
Yeah. I love camping, but not in the UK. Like I love camping in the desert. I think nothing beats camping in the desert when you get the warmth coming up through the sand. It's just awesome. But in the UK, it's pissing with rain. It's normally really bloody cold. I camped in Wales one time, and it was so cold the tents froze. So it was like, and like we couldn't even use the burner in the morning to make a brew because everything had frozen. But there was nothing enjoyable about this.
Have we had the question? I thought the question had cropped up before, but maybe it didn't. About when you get up in the morning, do you make a cup of coffee, have your breakfast, do all of that in the tent, or do you get up and wander around in the dew and do all of that? I do everything in the tent. I put off getting out of the tent for as long as possible.
Do you?
Whereas almost everybody else seems to wake up, get out of the tent, wander around in the in the gloom. I think, what are you doing? Why did you just not? You're going to have another hour of making tea and perhaps making something to eat. Why don't you do that in the comfort of your tent?
I'm in agony when I wake up in the morning. My body hurts. I feel like dirt. I'm not in a good mood, and the last thing I want to do is sit around my tent. I just want to get up and get moving.
Stretch.
Just get moving.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah. Right, we've got 4 questions left on Facebook. So I'm very aware of the time. That's over 2 hours. I keep looking at this. That's 2 hours I've kept you. Tony Lynn, again, 587. What training would you recommend for someone with limited off-road experience, trail bike or enduro? and would like to do TET in Europe and one day a rally. So, best training for limited off-road experience.
Certainly,
Trail or enduro.
Lel Pavy's videos would be a really good starting point. And there's nothing beats experiential training, as we call it in the training industry, to get out there and ride your bike. Just get out and ride. Challenge yourself, take your time. You will fall off, you will hurt yourself. There's plenty of off-road schools out there. The BMW is primarily big bikes. There's Mick Extance and who was on our podcast? Oh God.
Don't know. Give me a clue.
Not Steph. Steph Jevons.
Steph Jevons.
Oh,
Moto
Moto
Junkies.
Junkies.
Moto Junkies.
Yeah, she's lovely, Steph, isn't she?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably where I would go because they seem like a really nice bunch down there.
Yeah.
And they will tailor, whatever training you want to suit your needs. So, but yeah, the main thing is just get out there and ride.
Do you think if you're fairly new to it, it's quite good to go out with a TRF group? Clive, would you say that's good advice? So
I've heard good and bad things about going out with a TRF. Our local TRF is absolutely fantastic because they will lay on beginners rides, or if you are a beginner and you end up on a ride, they'll just wait with you and give you advice. I've also heard some TRF groups aren't so good because they'll just blat off and just leave you standing kind of thing. So it will depend. But I think, the TRF is a great starting point for anybody that's getting into trail riding. Because, they know where you can and you can't go. Most of the groups will organise rides for you, specifically for you as a beginner. They'll have monthly meetings so you can mark maps up or get GPX files. So, yeah, absolutely. TRF is a really good starting point.
I was invited out with sorry about that. No apologies. There's like a second delay with Zoom, isn't there? Sorry, man. I was invited away with a company called Phoenix Motorcycle Training. Now, they put my wife through her CBT back in the day, but they now do off-road as well. And they've got a base here in Kent, and they've got another one over in Salisbury Plains. So they knew about my reticence to going off-road. So they said, come away with us. We'll go around Salisbury Plain and we'll teach you. So I did it. And that's when I started to go, okay, I kind of see the appeal now. I'm starting to enjoy this. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah, definitely going away with like a school or as you said, a club. That's definitely, I would suggest, the way to go rather than just going yourself and not having a clue and winging it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to say I've been riding bikes for 50 years. I would benefit massively from going on any kind of training course, I think, even after that amount of time.
I'm not sure we would, because we've been riding for so long now that I think we probably do a lot of these things without knowing or thinking about them anyway. And if you think of all the technical stuff that we ride, we don't fall off very often anymore. And I don't know, it'd be interesting to know, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I still think I'm lacking a lot of technique and I'm not thinking about it enough, about what I'm doing. I'm just doing what feels right. And I don't think that's necessarily the right way.
I think it would depend what sort.
I'm a lot more humble than Clive, probably, about it.
I think it would depend what sort of person you are, won't it? Because, like, I've done some stuff with the IAM and I've done like track schools and all this sort of stuff. And you always get comment from people going, I've been riding 45 years, never had a single accident. There's nothing they could teach me. And you're like, you're right. There's nothing they could teach you because you're not going to open your mind and take anything on board. Clive, yeah. You know what I mean? So I think it does depend what sort of person you are, for sure. Right, Barber, Barber. Does Clive have any real friends, or are they just on-screen friendships?
So this obviously is my oldest son. Have you noticed? Have you seen noticed what he's wearing in Instagram, Bruce? He's the one that works for PBM, Paul Bird Motorsport.
Ah, right, okay.
And makes films with them. So my answer to you, son, is I had loads of bloody friends before you came along and ruined my life.
Do you know how many parents are out there going, yes, get in there. You tell him.
But I tell you what, this is the lovely thing about motorcycling, because you do find people. I'm just thinking about the Lightweight Adventurers Festival last summer. There was about 150 people there. Talk to everybody. You know, you have an instant connection with whoever you meet that is a biker. You've always got something to talk about. Bikers on the whole are pretty good people, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Even, cross tribe, we seem to get on, rub along all right. But
even Harleys to an extent.
Even Harleys. Even Harley riders.
Somebody looked over my shoulder the other day at my WhatsApp sort of homepage of all the different groups I've got, and sort of looked at the times and saw that they'd all been quite active quite recently, and really sort of drew my attention to the fact that I have a lot of little chats with people, and I suddenly realised I wake up in the morning, put some bread in the toaster, make a cup of tea, we'll turn my phone on, look at my WhatsApp, and I'm chatting to like 16 people. Mm-hmm. And we all know each other through motorcycles, and it's generally just a lot of just bullshit chat, or it's chat about when we're going to meet next. But it's all that's the common thread through it all is motorcycles. It's absolutely transformed my life like that, really.
Smut and grot, that tends to be the common thread amongst my WhatsApp groups, and that involves countless different motorcycle groups and tour groups and stuff. It's just, when something gets posted, something does the rounds, it's the new meme or whatever it is, the new video clip of the woman screaming in agony and ecstasy. As soon as that comes around, I'll end up getting about 50 messages. Everyone shares it, don't they, amongst all the different groups? And you're like,
sometimes the internet seems like a really small place, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally.
It's really strange, yeah.
Right. Clive, was that your son that you took on the back of your bike around? Was it France or Europe?
No, I was the son. I was the 12-year-old.
Oh, you are
my dad, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
right. Sorry. Right.
Yeah. No, my son he was an awesome rugby player, and I tried to take him on the back of my 1050. His legs are actually too big, and he's too heavy to go on the back of a motorcycle. He's absolutely massive.
Bit of a unit.
Yeah, total unit. Yeah, he's a good lad.
Right, Moto Mitch UK. How did Noel and Clive actually meet? Are they capable of being self-sufficient, or do they always holiday together? Another friend, family.
This is Adam again. This is Adam, our uncontrollable friend.
Yeah, the youngest friend. So we met on a TRF forum, and we do go on holiday without each other. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Now, much to Clive's consternation, Clive has this thing about he doesn't understand why I enjoy my solo trips. He's not a solo trip kind of guy.
No, you're not? Okay.
No,
I've done one. No. I've done it once. I did the NC 500 on my own. It was okay, but I'd rather have been with friends.
Yeah, it didn't change your mind, did it?
I love them. Yeah. But you definitely are, Noel, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. And I do enjoy group rides, but I would say I prefer the solo rides. It feels
selfish.
It's more adventurous. It's just something about it. It's simpler on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. Self-centered.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. It
doesn't like people.
And I have noticed, I just don't like riding other people's pace a lot of the time. I've noticed I first noticed it when I went away on group trips, and everybody else would set off ahead of me, and I'd be sort of putting my gloves on or something. And then I'd set off. And I wasn't just watching the bike in front. I was suddenly just looking at the fields and looking at the hills. And that's when I first realized, it's a completely different ride by yourself. You're not just in this train of following bikes. And I've had lots of great trips around Europe, but it has just been about keeping up with the guy in front or not slowing down the person behind me. And you're completely free of that by yourself.
I hadn't done a solo trip for so long because I was normally leading tours and doing all this sort of stuff. And then I had to get down to Slovenia to meet up with some people and go and we're doing stuff in Romania. So the trip down to Slovenia was a solo ride. And I just remember the feeling coming over me as I sort of came out the tunnel into France, and it was like, oh yeah, I remember this feeling. Awesome. I've got 2 days of just me. I had no plan, had not booked anything. It was just right. Let's just go follow our nose and see where, and I loved it. It was so good to get that again.
I really thought Clive, when you did that trip around Scotland, I really thought you'd come back going, oh, I get it now.
No, not at all. I did enjoy it, and I don't have a problem being alone, but I just think it's far more fun when you got mates to stop and have a crack with.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember on the big trip there were times when I was like, I wish such and such was here to experience that, or this person would like this, that person would like that. If you can have, I think for me, if I could have a nice little compromise of the two, that would suit me. I think definitely. Mm-hmm. Okay, last one on Insta. Rupert D. Jordan. Who's the better rider? Who's your favourite TAMP guest? Who's their least favourite TAMP guest? And what compromising info does Ollie Moto have on them?
What were they again? So,
better rider.
Noel is the better rider, without a doubt.
No. No, isn't this funny? Everybody really puts down their own riding. We ride with a few people who kind of constantly say, "Oh, I'm not very good at this," and they're fantastic at it.
Yeah, not all of them. Some of them are shit. Great.
No, I won't name them, but I'm always amazed at how good a riders people are. I think everyone kind of underestimates their ability pretty much. I'd say that's
there are some people who properly overestimate their ability.
Yeah.
I think you have to, when you do ride with people, you have to trust them. And I think that's the really nice thing about our group is we all ride in a fairly similar way.
Yeah.
Everybody leaves big gaps. There's no showing. Well, there is some showing off, but it's safe showing off. There's no stupidity, which is really important as well for getting home safely.
Absolutely. Okay. Favourite TAMP guest so far?
Gosh.
And least favourite TAMP guest so far?
How much can we say here?
Lel was great.
Lel was
just
lovely.
Recently. I think you always think of the most recent one as being the best, but Lel Pavey was absolutely brilliant. Ollie is a great guest. His first aid podcasts, I think everybody should listen to.
Yeah.
Really, really valuable stuff for riding with friends if the worst does happen.
I mean, the primary reason for doing this is that we enjoy the conversations. That absolutely is the primary reason for doing it, isn't it? And
we get to meet people that we wouldn't normally get to meet and talk to, which is amazing.
It opens doors, doesn't it? As you said, to people that your paths would probably never cross before. Normally.
Yeah. And as I say, I've said this a few times, but in 99% of cases, I'll go upstairs and have my supper, just absolutely buzzing from the conversation I've had. My head sort of spinning and sort of taking it all in, really. I absolutely love it. Yeah.
We don't have favorites normally because I've had a few of these.
But least favourite...
Well, let me answer that. From an editor's perspective, the ones that are difficult to edit are the ones that are, so somebody that... I'm not going to mention anybody's names because you can't have favourites and you can't have people you haven't enjoyed. But yeah, anybody that's difficult to edit is my least favourite guest.
What makes a difficult edit?
Speech kind of patterns, unnecessary words, you know what I mean? In it, just yeah. Fucking air in all those kinds of things. And we all do them. It's just some people do them more than others.
Yeah. Do you even take out the pauses if somebody's just thinking of the next word?
I take out a proportion of the pause, yes. So if somebody leaves a really long gap, I'll take a bit of it out just to...
Yeah.
I don't need to, but I do. I can't help myself.
I do these podcasts, Bruce, obviously. I don't notice the edits. They're just amazing. I can tell that they have been cleaned up because sometimes you will get somebody who will pause a lot whilst they're thinking of the next word. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to spot. It's beautifully done.
No, your edit is fantastic, Clive. It is really good. I was really impressed, particularly with the one I did with you, because you worked wonders with that.
Well, that's the other thing. You actually want to make people sound good, don't you? Really, you want to make them sound like they're on the Radio 4 in the morning kind of thing. It's and you can do that with editing with pretty much anybody.
And least favorite. I mean, it would be terrible to say who was your least favorite.
But you're dying to. Come on.
I know exactly who they are. But I would just say my least favorite podcasts to do are the ones that have a commercial bent to them. And luckily, we don't do many of those. Where if someone's on to promote something, really, I find those very difficult. But we do very few of those.
We don't really do those, do we?
No, we don't do those. No.
Yeah, I have experience of that. Yeah, for sure. Right. Okay. Last ones over to Facebook. Again, I'll leave all the links down below. Gents, do you have time for this? We are 2.5 hours in. You all right?
Nobody's going to listen to all
Are we doing
this?
Is this for charity or something?
You would be surprised. Honestly,
it's the longest podcast.
I've tried. These started off at like 3.5 hours, and I had a couple of people comment going, "Oh, getting a wee bit too long here." So I started trying to make them like an hour and a half. The amount of feedback, negative feedback I got from people going, "No, I want at least 2 hours. Bring back the long form stuff."
Wow.
So we're back to that now.
Amazing.
Okay, right. First one, Steve Bolter. Good evening, guys. I hope you're all well. I have 3 quick questions, if I may. What's the biggest spanner you have in your garage? Bruce, you won't know what one of those is. Thanks very much. Cheers.
So this is one of the questions we ask of our guests every now and again, and the current record is young Rory with a 55mm spanner.
Jesus.
What do you use that for? It's not the size of your spanner, it's what you do with it. And this
Absolutely.
10, you won't believe what I've done with this 10mm spanner.
You've got a 10mm? How did you find a 10mm spanner?
Well, don't you find, I mean, I've got 4 10mm spanners. You can't have enough 10mm spanners. You can't have enough 10mm, 12s and 17s and possibly 19s. Yeah. They're my favourites.
Multiples of each.
Yeah. What does Rory do with his?
Is that the spin with his chopper? Yeah, that's a spindle one though, isn't it? That's for your rear wheel, isn't it? Surely a 55.
No, he found it in a shipyard and just brought it home with him because he liked it.
With the propeller off a.
Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. The rear spindle, that's 35, isn't it? I think the Gixxer's something like a 35. Yeah, 55. Bloody hell! Wow. It's like a tank.
Yeah, it's huge. Although one of the Adams works for a company called Jador, who have really, really kindly offered to make the trophies because we're doing some awards. Actually, it'd be great to mention those. Yeah. So the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast Awards, we've got 30 different categories. Best off-road helmet, best boots, best trail bike, best big bike, best tech bike, all these different categories. And so Jador have just brought out a 60mm spanner. And I did look at it thinking it'd be quite funny to buy one for Noel. It was 276 quid. It's not that fucking funny.
Nice one.
We met some people. We went to the Lightweight Adventurers Festival last year, which was the first one they've done. And we met some great people at this festival who have become one of the WhatsApp groups that I'm talking to whilst I'm waiting for my toast to pop. But this beautiful little group of friends, don't you think, Clive, we haven't talked about this, they've kind of become the unofficial sort of committee. How would I describe it?
We go to them for all kinds of advice.
We do, yeah. But they're sort of team TAMP, really, aren't they now? They don't realize it. They don't realize that, but they're on the.
They're proper friends as well, aren't they? That's the thing. They all came and had a weekend up here, and we went out riding in the dales and the lakes, and they're just proper mates now. Good bunch, really good bunch of people.
We were saying this earlier. Isn't it amazing how something like this, something like the podcast, or like social media, something like this, it brings people together, doesn't it? And not just online, like physically together, like you say.
We're doing the ACT, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Make sure I do that. Yes. I'm sure my lot will love to see me falling off in the dirt. So absolutely. Let's get that done. Steve says. Sorry, go on.
Well, what bike are you doing the ACT on?
Well, you said it was suitable for the big adventures, so
so I'll have to do presumably.
I'll have to do it on a tractor, or I mean that's due for renewal fairly soon-ish. So
you don't want to do it on a new bike, that's for sure.
I'm not bothered about that. I tell you what, though, I'm getting my Gixxer back on the road, the one I did the big trip on. So
that'd make a good film, Bruce, but we might not get very far.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised what that bike has gone through and gone over. I'm not afraid about dropping it. So, yes, I mean, that bike's literally been over rockfall. Like, it sort of got me up the rockfall, and then I had to sort of drop it and slide it down the other end. It's incredible. Amazing. That machine.
So it's going to be on the road again this year?
Yeah, that's the plan, is to get it back on the road and maybe do a tour or two on it and a couple of track days if I can. So yeah, I just want to get her back out on the road. It's horrible seeing her sat in the garage just rotting. So yeah, she deserves more than that.
Yeah.
Right, Steve says, Bruce, please ask the TAMP boys, Greg Villalobos or Ollie Moto, which one is better and why?
Well, Ollie is dead to us now.
That's right. So it's Greg.
Greg gives us free stuff. There's no question, is there, really? It's Greg.
I think Greg's my favourite, obviously. Yeah. Question 3. Has Bruce mentioned that he went round the world yet? Shh, I like to talk about
the big trip. The big trip, as we now call it, yeah. He hasn't.
Enjoy both the TAMP and Teapot podcasts. Keep up the good work all. Stay shiny side up, and I look forward to meeting Clive and Noel at the Lightweight Adventure Festival later this year.
See you there.
Cheers, Steve. Nice one. Right, Alec, I'm trying to fly through these gents because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 on Facebook. So
Wow.
Let's batter through these. Alex Johnson, question. You're out trail riding in a group and someone gets a rear puncture and has no idea how to fix it. Which one of you would be first to come to the rescue? I'm asking for a friend.
Neither. It's Big Davey would do it.
All right.
He's a great big, hard ex-Navy engineer. Just let him get on with it. Yeah, it'd be fine.
I was going to say, Clive, you strike me that you'd probably just go, you should have your own kit and just ride on Top Gear rules.
No, definitely not Top Gear rules.
Yeah, no. I have a feeling, Clive, when you rode over some rubble in the Netherlands on a track, someone had filled a pothole in with some builder's rubble and you got a massive nail in your back tyre.
Yes.
I was going to say you didn't get too involved in fixing your own puncture. I pretty much
didn't fix it. It was Davey and Joe did it.
Yeah.
But I think I had 3 punctures that week.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Do you know, I'm going to regret saying this, but I've had some punctures, but I never really suffer too badly with them. Like on a big trip, I only had 1 proper puncture in the whole trip.
Yeah.
And that was
off-road guys always carry a spare tube and levers and, kind of get used to fixing it.
We're paranoid about it, aren't we? But I've had 2 punctures in in my whole life of trail riding, but it's certainly in the last 20 years of trail riding. Yeah.
Really?
Well, I think I've only ever had those 3 on that one trip. It's bizarre. Yeah.
And yet every time you're loading up your puncture repair kit and your levers.
Okay. I'm going to ask an incredibly stupid question without realizing why it's as stupid as it probably inevitably is. Why do off-road bikes have tube tires and not tubeless?
You'd have to
easy.
Go on. What's the answer?
Well, because you can. It's far easier to fix, isn't it? Kind of easier in most instances to fix a tube tire.
You can plug a tube tire, can't you?
Depends
tubeless,
on the.
I think they're going more tubeless these days.
I'd be scared. Yeah. I'd be scared going off with a tubeless tire. I'd be much more at ease going off with a tubed tire.
So in that case, why wouldn't you use like a moose then? Because
I use mooses for years, but they're £100 each.
Right.
And they only last for 2,500 miles.
Really?
Yeah. Then they go and you have to replace them. Yeah. I mean, Dakar guys will get through a moose in a day. The way they
really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
But I think it's just that in most cases, you'll be able to fix a tube tire either by replacing the tube or repairing the tube, where you'll get a tear occasionally on a tubeless tire that you won't be able to fix, and then you're really caught out.
Oh, okay.
If you can't plug it and it's a little bit of a slice or something, and you can't put a piece of rubber in it.
I suppose you're more inclined to get a slice, aren't you, off road?
Yeah.
Rather than just a plain puncture like you would on the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just more chance of a repair, I think.
I'm quite impressed there was more of a debate around that rather than you stupid fucking idiot.
But it's just so weird how infrequently it happens, and yet we're all so fearful of it. And I've read with quite a few people who've never done it, and it's kind of one of these things they're just quite fearful of attempting, really. There's always a way of doing it.
Yeah.
But then when it does happen, it's one of those things, Bruce, it's strange. When it does happen, it can make the day. People having punctures, it makes for a good day out in a way when somebody does get one.
I've always said this. You like on adventure rides, when you do the global trips or you go away on your big adventure, people are always so scared about what if things go wrong. Whereas I'm the total opposite. And anyone that's done a big trip has the same mindset. And they're like, you want things to go wrong because that's when the adventure starts.
Yeah, that's when people help you out and stuff happens and you meet people. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Totally. Over and over.
Right.
But apart from that, he's all right.
But you've left a question. Noel's girlfriend, wife here. Could you ask him what time he'll be finished and what he wants for his supper? Thanks.
I keep hearing the oven door upstairs opening and shutting. So I think there's kind of like, she takes it out. He must be any minute now. He's going to be coming out. And then, nope, he's not here.
I can't believe you're still pretending you've actually got a partner. I've just got a message from Rachel saying, when you have your food, please can you put the rest in the fridge? My dinner's been made for me too. Nice.
I think my wife's just gone to bed, so it's like, right, sort yourself out. Cornflakes it is.
Yeah, again.
Bridget Hallam, what's the best question they've asked a guest, and why was it so good?
Biggest spanner every time.
I don't know. Do you feel like I felt in the early days, and I think I picked this up probably from somebody else's podcast, but I was always very keen to hear about how people got into biking. So my question would always be like, what was your first bike, or why did you get into it? I seem to have stopped doing that recently, but that in a way is my favorite question, is how people got into whatever.
Journey.
Yeah.
Go on then. What got you into it? What got you into bikes?
I started riding. The first thing I ever rode was my brother told me it was a Harley Davidson scooter. And for years, I would tell people that the first thing I rode was a Harley Davidson scooter, that Harley Davidson had got together with Lambretta and had made this scooter and that had a Harley Davidson badge on it. I was like into my 40s, even 50s probably, when I realized that somebody just stuck a Harley Davidson badge on an old Lambretta, didn't they?
But I did some research on this because you told the story before. There was a Harley Davidson scooter.
Really?
Yeah.
Genuinely,
yeah.
This was a 150cc thing. I'd a pivotal moment in my life where I was taken for a walk of a track at the top of the valley where I live, and I'd probably be about 6 or 7 maybe, and some blokes went past. It was one of those kind of rambler situations where we had to sort of jump to the side of the road, and about 6 blokes flew past, probably on old BSAs or something. Or Nortons probably at the time, because this would be like 1974 or something. And I remember just being absolutely transfixed at this, thinking, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
So that's probably what sowed the seed. Seeing those things for the first time, just thought, wow, that looks amazing. But I've always been absolutely fascinated by motorcycles, and just
my dad rode as a youngster, and he got back into biking when I was a kid, and I was just utterly obsessed with motorbikes from a very young age, around the time that Barry Sheen was winning world championships. Yeah. And I also remember reading a column by in Trials and Motocross News about this Grand Prix motocross mechanic, or scrambling as it was called back then. And I was utterly obsessed with motocross. And I used to race as a small child in the Midlands. I used to do schoolboy scrambling, and we started off on a road bike converted class. So it was a CB125. I used to race on that. I've told my Jason Bonham story. So John Bonham, who was the drummer in Led Zeppelin, his son was in the same club as me, Wally Wasps, back in the Midlands. So John Bonham was there every now and again. I had no idea who he was. He was just Jason's rich dad. Jason had 2 bikes and a trailer that matched the Range Rover. But yeah, I raced as a kid. Big FS1E, broke my leg really badly, big gap, and then started again when I moved up here.
Were you on a bike as a little kid, Bruce?
No, not at all. I was just the way to say. So you two have both got proper heritage with bikes. I grew up thinking bikes were cool, but was always told you're not having a bike. My mum was really anti-bike. Funnily enough, it was my mum that was the one that catapulted me into them in the end. But growing up, my mum was anti-bike. And I always looked at them and admired them from afar. I remember seeing some of the TT on the TV and just thinking, oh my God, that looks incredible. And I had the poster bike. This is the blue and white Suzuki GSX-R. That was the poster bike. But just never pulled the pin when I was an adult and did it. And then obviously things happened where my mum got ill, and she said to me, live your life, go for it. And that sort of catapulted me onto the journey I'm on now, still to this day. So yeah.
See,
I was a late starter.
But you see, I realise now I've already asked you this question. I asked you this question when you came on our podcast. I just automatically ask it, but I am always genuinely interested to know how people got into it.
Is that it? Is that the Harley scooter?
No, it didn't look like that.
Scooter. Didn't look like that.
No, it didn't look like that.
Someone did just stuck a Harley badge on yours.
Yeah, probably.
Right, we're nearly there, gents. We're nearly there. Adam F., out of all the Adams, who's your favourite?
So this is an issue we have. We do know loads of people called Adam, and it's very confusing, especially on WhatsApp. If you just have if they have a number and they don't have a picture
Picture, yeah.
Next to their name. I have to admit, I often get confused as to which Adam I'm talking to.
It's probably Rory anyway.
Don't tell them that.
Is a favourite.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because the next question is Rory Often. Is that the Rory?
Yeah, same Rory. Yeah.
Question: out of Clive and Noel, who would Bruce rather go on a long distance trip with, and why?
I love this question. It's obvious, isn't it? It's
really obvious, Bruce.
Yeah.
Who you can have more fun with in the evening.
I mean, it's so embarrassing because it's so obvious what he wants to say, but now he's been put on the spot.
I don't know either of you particularly well, though, do I?
No.
Well, the thing is, Bruce, we're going on a trip anyway, so
we are.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
The question is answered. Yeah,
there we go. I'm looking at this camera again. It's the wrong one. There you go.
Yeah, let's go and find out.
We'll draw a discreet veil over that. Peter Johnson, about time you had Chunky Tread. Oh, it's a plug. Chunky Tread Motorcycle Adventure Club man on. Is that Peter Johnson? I take it.
I don't know him. Yeah, don't know who he is.
Yeah, great.
Right,
let's do that.
We've gone through all the questions, gents. That is almost 3 hours. Almost.
Gosh.
So, can I ask you one of my own?
Mm.
And you can string this out for as long or short as you like. Where do you see the future of TAMP?
Over to you, Clive.
So Noel's always on at me. Why do we do it so often? Why can't we just do it once a month?
Yeah, let's talk about this for a second. I would really like us to put out 2 a month maximum.
We do 3 a month at the moment.
Yeah, okay. Well, one to 2 a month. And so we always have this slight disagreement that Clive kind of fires them out. He's like a child. He just wants to get them out there all the time. He'd put 2 a week out if he could. Whereas I would like to ration people. I listen to quite a few. Well, I don't listen to quite a few. I listen to a very small number of podcasts, but almost all of them come out probably one every 3 months. But it doesn't make me stop following them. I've been following them for 10 years, a lot of these. I think we don't need to sort of set ourselves this ridiculous goal of 3 a month.
So I don't really have a goal. If I can find somebody that's willing to be on it, then I'll arrange it when they're available.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you love to have lots in the bank? So
we've got one in the bank now because the last guest hasn't signed it off yet. So yeah, that's a nice position to be in, where you've got a few set up so you're not rushing to edit it. Where do I see it going? What do I want to do with it? I want to carry on meeting fun people. I want to carry on doing fun things. So I've mentioned the Lightweight Adventurous Festival already. We're actually curating a stage. So, we've got a bunch of people that we know coming to talk about various things and do various workshops and things like that.
It's great, isn't it? I mean,
it's things like that. Yeah, amazing.
You've done live podcasts as well, haven't you?
Yeah. There's a difficult edit.
I bet that is. Yeah, for somebody like you that likes the proper polished final edit, that must be a nightmare. Whereas when
we have a heckle mic as well, so we have a microphone pointing into the audience, so anybody can walk forward and say anything they want.
Oh wow,
which is quite good fun.
Well, you're making your own bed there, so you got
But the number of times somebody would give a great heckle from their seat and then would have to be told, no, come on, up to the heckle.
That was really funny. Come and say it again.
It loses it then, doesn't it? Yeah, I quite enjoy doing the live ones. I've done a few of them at various different events, and I enjoy that side of it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What you were saying about having some in the bank, I find I do these weekly, and I got myself into a routine of having at least a month, if not 2 months worth of guests, like all lined up and scheduled, So I knew who was coming on each week for about the next 2 months. That was brilliant. But then over Christmas, I made a conscious decision to take my foot off everything over Christmas and try and have 2 weeks off where I wasn't doing anything. And it didn't quite work like that with a few things because I just launched some tours, so I had to deal with that. But the podcast and the vids, I just stopped for the 2 weeks. And then like trying to kick back in with a whole, another lineup of guests. It's the start of the year and some people couldn't do that week. They could do in a month, 2 months time. And then you're like, oh God. So trying to get back to that where you have guests all scheduled in. But that definitely takes the pressure off when you know.
Yeah. And we've got that for the first time ever. We've kind of scheduled into, the end of early March now. I think we've got people lined up to come on, which is great.
Yeah.
It still all feels like a novelty, doesn't it? I didn't think we'd be doing it this long. I don't think.
No. But I really enjoy doing it. And financially, it's still, we have a Patreon. I think we have about 22 people on there. So we get in about £60 a month, which is great because it pays all the costs, because there is quite a bit of cost involved in hosting and software and all that kind of stuff. It's not YouTube, so I don't think it will ever become, an income source, although it'd be really nice if, we've got 47,000 Patreons signing up to give us £3 a month, but it's such a niche thing. It ain't ever going to happen, really. So just enjoy what we do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at people like, Rogan and those big podcasts out there, and they're making obscene amount. Maybe not so much Rogan now because he's on a different deal, isn't he? He's a sort of one-off deal with Spotify. But the other big podcasts out there that are getting, millions of downloads every episode, they make an incredible amount of money just in sponsors.
I heard sponsors. I heard the biggest Patreon account had something like 47,000 patrons, and they earn £150,000 a month.
Yeah, that'd be about right. It was about 200 podcast. When I started Patreon about 4 years. No, when did I start Patreon? Two and a bit years ago. I think the biggest at that point was about $280,000 at that point. So yeah, that's roughly about. What's that, about 150 grand, something like that?
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it?
Crazy, stupid money, isn't it? Yeah. Right, gents, I'll not keep you any longer. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. Before we go, throw it open to you. You lads, plug your podcast, plug whatever you want. Floor's yours.
Oh, this is the sort of thing we're not very good at. We do a podcast about motorbikes and that. Come and have a listen. The Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast.
It's all right.
Yeah,
sometimes interesting. It's all right.
And where do they find this?
So we're on all good podcast providers. We are pretty much audio only. I'm experimenting with YouTube at the moment, but go to Apple Podcasts if you're on Apple, or Google Podcasts if you're on Android. Do a search for the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast.
What's the website address? Do we have a website?
We have a website. It's called tampodcast.com. TAMPOD
All the links will be down below, folks. And if people do go to your podcast on Apple or Spotify, what would you like them to do? Perhaps rate it? Leave a rating?
You're so good at this. Yeah. We're like amateurs compared to you.
I never say it, but I know how much of an impact it has. So yeah. If you like it, give us a positive rating. If you don't like it, you don't.
I've got a question about our podcast. If people were to go back, how far back would you say to go?
Oh, that's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I still remember the first ones we recorded in your downstairs living room, sat around one microphone.
You've got to start with them, surely.
I would start with the later ones and work backwards.
That's great. Yeah, that's excellent advice. Yeah.
And when they get shit, stop doing it.
Brilliant.
Gents, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. Really enjoyed it. And
it's been brilliant.
Later on in the year or next year, whatever, I'd love to get you back on as well. And obviously, we're going to go and do whatever that was we were going to do. ACT. We're going to go and do that.
Send you some information. Brilliant.
Nice one. Are you doing it with us, Noel? Or is it just me and Clive?
Definitely. Yeah, no, definitely.
Excellent. Right, let's do it. Make some videos out of it. Awesome. Right, folks, I will leave all the links down below. So make sure you give the boys a like, a follow. Yeah, make sure if you enjoy it, you rate the podcast, as they just said. Right, gents, thank you very much for coming on. Much appreciated. Folks, hope you've enjoyed this one. Keep doing your thing. Get on out there whenever you can. But most importantly, live your life. Woo-ha!
Hey.